December 21st, 2024. I remember being a little kid sometime in the 80s and realizing I would be 21 for 6 days in 2000 and thinking it was so far away. Couldn't imagine. And of course, when I was a kid, I thought by 2024 we would be the Jetsons. That's how we were raised to believe. Like, it's really weird when you look at how, like, the future doesn't even seem like it's really presented anymore. You know, like the 80s and the 90s, it was all about the future. It was all about, you know, we're going to be doing this and we're going to be doing that. And I mean, you know, we were supposed to have been back to the moon, had space hotels, you know, all that, elevators and all that shit by now. And it just goes to show you it really is just shit. None of it's real. You know, they just sort of fill our heads with bullshit, and then hopefully we forget. You know, I was watching this. There's these Christmas cartoons are on, obviously, right now. And there's this one Christmas cartoon. I wonder if I can find it. Where it's the Roadrunner. Snow seed machine. Maybe it's the Little Acme. So it's funny because it's the, I can't find it, damn. Roadrunner cartoon snow machine. Maybe that'll pop up. Well, I'm having a hard time finding it, but Wile E. Coyote, he has this, he makes this machine that shoots snow. You know, it shoots it out in different directions. And it says on there, Little Acme, you know, cloud seeder or snow, you know, cloud seeding snow machine or something like that. And it was this label, and I wish I could read the label. Try one more thing. Acme cloud seeding snow machine. And it's of course it doesn't. No, it doesn't have it. But it's purdy. You're supposed to say purdy, stupid. That's where the joke is. You got a real purdy mouth, nice and round. That's the joke. If you're gonna be stupid, at least, you know, be intelligent in your stupidity. But it's the idea of it is like that Roadrunner cartoon, probably from the 40s, 50s. Let's look up cloud seeding. Let's see how old that technology is. Cloud seeding. Trying to look up the wiki to keep consistency. No, that's cloud computing. What is cloud computing? Is a paradigm for enabling network access. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Huh. Cloud seeding isn't a It's like it keeps going with cloud, Google Cloud, and bullshit like that. Cloud seeding since 1948. Well, I'd like to find more information than something somebody says on YouTube. Why did that just happen? That was fucking weird. It just looked up cloud. Okay, now I've got cloud site. Okay. Cloud seeding is a type of weather modification that aims to change the amount or type of precipitation, mitigate hail, or disperse fog. And remember, you're saying 48. Well, there was Meyer, that Meyer guy, in the 19 rained out Southern California, and got in trouble for it. But he was, he was like this world renowned guy who could make it rain. He promised to make it rain. He would offer to make it rain whatever you wanted, and you didn't have to pay him until after the fact. And so he would go around to all these different farmers and whatnot that would experiencing a drought, and he would offer to make it rain. If it didn't work, then don't pay me. I'll make it rain this much in this amount of time. And he had like 100% success rate. He was so successful at it that there was a really bad drought in Southern California, and that the government actually hired him. And when he overproduced, it caused a big flood and all this other shit. He never got paid for it. This is a really fascinating story. Maybe we'll look it up here. We'll look it up after this because I want to get the details right. But it's like this is older. These stories are as old as anything else, and people still think it's just some weird conspiracy theory. The usual object is to increase rain or snow, either for its own sake or to prevent precipitation from occurring in days afterward. Wow, have you ever heard of this? Like, don't you think you would have heard of this by now? Don't you think there would have been some sort of something like, if submarines aren't really real, then explain SpongeBob. Well, good to see you here, Hugo. Go watch the first night. I mean, submarines are as real. Submarines are as real as space travel is. So you believe what you want to believe, but see, this is another, this is one of these examples of, if you talk about cloud seeding, if you say, hey, look, they're spraying like crazy. A lot of people, nowadays, people at least have an idea of it. They might think it's hooey, but they at least have heard of it. 20 years ago, people hadn't even heard of it. But what you're going to find out is that this technology is really, really old. They've been able to drop shit out of planes since they've been able to fly planes. But let's see what happens. Cloud seeding is undertaken by dispersing substances into the air that serve as cloud condensation or ice nuclei. Common agents include silver iodide, potassium iodide, and dry ice with hygroscopic materials like table salt gaining popularity due to their ability to attract moisture. They're spraying salt, supposedly, amongst other things, into the air. Is that maybe why all the animals, the dogs and shit, have been so itchy lately?
Probably. That and the water.
I mean, I'm convinced our Redford water's poison. I really wish. I need to do something about that. Redford, Michigan, the water that comes from the faucets is poison. And from what I can tell, it's killed. What do we know? We know of 1, 2, 3, 4.
Daisy.
Well, no, I'm talking about the ones that have died.
Yeah, Rex.
Daisy hasn't died.
Scott, well, she's on
Right.
her way.
What was dude's dog's name?
Uh,
Both of them. Because he had two. We forget he had two.
oh, he did have two, Jeff.
Yeah. So he had two dogs, whatever those dogs' names are.
And then Joe. Joe's two dogs.
Joe's two dogs. And then when we first got here, their dog across the street. So what are we at? Like 8 dogs? We know of like 8 dogs that have died of stomach tumors, of tumors within their body. At around 8 years old or so, they start having all these masses appear on their bodies. And at some point, you know, and they're all inside their stomachs and all this stuff. And at some point, the tumors will rupture. And the dog, you know, is basically poisoned to death from the inside. It's weird that your body can hold poison inside it that will kill you if it leaks, but it's still inside your body. How does that even work? That's so fucking crazy. But these, you know, it's painful. It's awful to watch. And we're seeing it again with like 2 other dogs that we know, at least 2 other dogs that we know of offhand. And the only common association between all these dogs in this neighborhood, because I don't know how many people experience the same thing outside of this neighborhood, but it's the water. We all feed our dogs differently. We have our dogs outside different amounts of time. You know, it can't be anything like that. The only common denominator is the water here, and our water stinks. The water fucking stinks. I mean, we're in Michigan. You guys remember the Flint situation, right? The water here stinks, especially in the morning after it's been sitting for a minute. Really, it's fucking gross. I mean, it sucks brushing your teeth and shit with it. But let's go back to the cloud seeding. Techniques vary from static seeding, which encourages ice particle formation in supercooled clouds to increase precipitation, to dynamic seeding, designed to enhance convective cloud development through the release of latent heat. Like the thing is, so you read this, right? Or you hear it or whatever. And you're hearing words, and you might even know 90% of the words that I read. 99% of the words. You might even heard the word like, convective doesn't sound like it's, you know, it's something that you have heard of, but you don't really know what convective means. I don't. Convective cloud development through the release of latent heat. Huh? No. Methods of dispersion include aircraft and ground-based generators. I mean, this is chemtrails. This is chemtrails. What are you guys not understanding? I mean, it's like you let the system tell you that things you see being sprayed in the sky, you actually see it happening. You see that on days like today, either no one's flying or they're just not spraying. And I'm not going to go with no one's flying. But you see it happening in front of your face and you still say, they say it nothing. Get. Well, it worked to some degree. I mean, it's fascinating to me because most of you will you know, those are just contrails. Those are just contrails. Because, you know, it's funny how it doesn't matter what it is. Everyone's an expert. Huh? Everyone's an expert. You know? Everyone's like, oh no, that's just contrails. Like, they've looked it up. Like, they know all about this shit. Or everyone's uncle flies planes or, shit like that. Like, it's funny. Lead pipes plus fluoride and other chemicals equals slow poisoning, kind of like they have it planned. Absolutely. Dude, Saudi Arabia wants it to rain in the desert. They cloud seeding and it rains. I mean, the crazy part is, like, there's this video, this documentary from Woodstock, 1969. 1969. It's actually pretty brilliant. Like, for them to think to do that at that time was kind of unheard of. People didn't do that kind of shit. But the organizers of Woodstock set up or had two camera crews walking around the whole grounds or whatever, the farm, videoing, just videoing the experience, right? And so there's this one point, day 3 or day whatever. There, Woodstock, one of the most famous. Get off of those! Why do I gotta tell you guys this? What are you thinking?
Hey, you yell at me, man.
I did.
No, I'm talking about.
The rain and the subsequent mud and all that is just as famous as Woodstock is at this point. So much so that they recreated it when they did Woodstock again, right? But the thing is, again, you're talking about the Super J, super conservative, J-controlled government. And the plan was, what? If we make it rain, they'll hate it. Oh, I hate the rain, don't you? Oh, yeah. So their dumbasses thought if they made it rain, the people would be, I mean, Woodstock is one of the greatest examples of who we really are. Like they love to tell us that when things break down, we'll turn into savages or whatever. But the original Woodstock, I mean, it was so huge that people were just parking their cars and walking for miles because there was no moving. The traffic had just stopped. And anybody that complains, I mean, I'm sure there are people that had a lot of their shit kind of busted, but that economy boomed. And if you were any bit intelligent, you would have taken advantage of it. Do I believe in God? Shut up. There's absolutely no God. Come on. So there's this scene in the Woodstock documentary. Again, I highly suggest everybody watch it. It is phenomenal. If anything, just for the music, it's phenomenal. But there's one point where some Vietnam vets come up to the camera crew and they go, look. And they point to this big fucking, looks like a B-2 bomber type of a plane. They're like, look, they're going to seat us. We were doing that to the Viet Cong, Look, you see that big trail coming out of the back of them? Yeah, they're seeding it. It's going to rain here soon. Man, they'd be saying bro today. Bro. But they were saying man. And so, it's like, and that's what, they come, they lay these big fucking obvious lines. It's like, it's a beautiful day in a place where it doesn't rain on that weekend in history. Like, they planned it that way. There was no rain in the forecast. It was just beautiful, clear blue skies. And they changed it. They thought that the rain would negatively affect things, and it didn't. But that's 1969. That's footage. That's every aspect of it is there. If you were doing some sort of controlled experiment, that would be it. You have an environment where it's not supposed to rain. You have some people walking around with cameras filming a music event where random people, like this wasn't planned. These hippie Vietnam vets with their green jackets on and their long hair, and they run up to the camera and they're like, hey, 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 and the camera crew's like, what's going on? And they're like, look up there. And they either predict it because they're magical fucking psychics or some shit. Hey, maybe the psychic ward was looking for them too. They either predict it or or something else is happening. And you find where a person is talking to the DA office and the sheriff's office on a line about a double homicide that could happen, and it happens. I can find it. I don't know what you're doing. But that's one of those things where, I mean, I say it's undeniable. You might be an asshole, and an assholes might say, ooh, that's just a coincidence. Oi,
Guess who that's for?
that's just a coincidence. Me, right? This is for me. This is for me too. She acts like she doesn't know, but she knows. All right, let's see. Did you get some drool? Did you get some drool? Hitting the balls? Congratulations, buddy. Methods in view for dispersion include aircraft and ground-based generators. Like, what could that be? What would an aircraft-based cloud seed generator look like? If I was going to ask you to explain to me what cloud seeding would look like, in your head, what would you say it would look like? Wouldn't it look like a plane flying with some shit coming out of the back of it? Like, how else would you propose to do that? Fucking catapults on the ground, like throwing big bags of seeds up in the air or something? Is that what you would think? What other way could you cloud seed other than dropping a bunch of shit out of the back of a plane? Like I said, the only other time you see coming out of the back of a plane is when you're at an air show. And you're like, oh, look, they're skywriting, because planes don't normally leave big, long trails behind them. So when they do, we're like, oh, look, here's something different. But then when you see that in everyday life, you're like, well, those planes must need to go to the mechanic or something. Huh. They're leaving big, long fucking streaks that don't even dissipate. They just get bigger and bigger for some reason. And you'll see there's multiple kinds. There's like the double layer. They always start with that double layer super thick boy to like, maybe that's like the guiding one. I don't know. But you'll get ones that look like little plumes over and over again. You'll get the kind that are real skinny that just sort of flatten out. You get the ones that look like bombs where it's like there's a spot and then it looks like all my little boys who played in the creek when they were kids, where you drop a dirt ball in the creek and then the current would sort of pull it apart and you'd see that like cloud come off of it. That's what happens. You see the cloud literally like leaking, like it's in water. I've seen corkscrew chemtrails, and you just think like, how can you possibly not think something's going on there? Yeah. Yeah, I figured the comments were shut down for some reason. All right. Techniques vary from static seeding, which encourages ice. Oh, we already did that. Right. aircraft or ground-based generators with newer approaches involving drones delivering electronic charges to stimulate rainfall, or infrared laser pulses aimed at inducing particle formulation. Guys, what do you think that is? Like, this is another one of those things where I love all the trolls on the feed, because you just go, okay, so you guys are big fans of this, huh? Like, I can't, I mean, I know most of you are dumb Jays, Israel supporting, piece of shit, genocide, pedos. I know there's a lot of those people out there. And their whole goal is to get me to stop talking, because they do not like that I'm so good at this.
Wait, that's Nick, right?
And I don't know.
Naruto is Nathan. Jujutsu Kaisen is
No,
Nick.
that's Nathan.
Are you sure?
100%.
That was Nick.
100%. 100%. I mean, it's like, you know, none of those people will ever deny being pedo. They don't even get mad at being called pedo. That should tell you something. Most people don't like getting called pedo. That's for damn sure. Let's see. Despite decades of research and application, decades of research and application. What does that mean? That means they've been doing it for decades. I mean, again, I just can't understand what people think is going on instead. What do you think is going on? They're literally telling you. Decades of research and application, cloud seeding's effectiveness remains a subject of debate among scientists, with studies offering mixed results on its impact on precipitation enhancement. Some studies suggest it is difficult to show clearly that cloud seeding has a very large effect. So, if they can't really show the effects of it, what are they paying? I mean, they have to buy, manufacture all of the product, and then they have to have planes, pilots, I mean, unless it's all drones anymore, flying. Like, I honestly, I've thought that for a while now. You know, with again, as we move forward and they allow us to know more about technology, a lot more shit makes sense. Like in '89, when they showed us stealth technology, these stealth planes that they had since maybe the 30s, clearly the 40s, but you know, the 30s, maybe even earlier. And you see these you know, these black, funny shaped, V-shaped planes. And you go, oh, so that's what people have been calling UFOs over and over again, because they look just like UFOs. And to think what they're showing us is the old version. They're not showing us the brand new best technology they have aspects. So what they're willing to tell us is you know, just enough. They just tell us enough to keep us excited, to keep us engaged, to keep our, you know, to keep being able to steal the money from us and telling us it's going to good things. But this is, you know, you're hearing the proof. This is 100% proof. And the idea of it, well, we don't really know the effectiveness of it. Then why the fuck are you doing it? Why would you be spraying, what is it? Silver iodide, potassium iodide, and dry ice, along with different versions of salt, apparently, into the atmosphere if you didn't think it had 100%, you know, effectiveness? Why would you waste all of that resource, time, energy? Like, think about how you know, it's like when Joe Rogan says, the government denies UFOs, but they've been spending money for decades building facilities and all these other things to attempt to talk to them. We spend all this money and energy and resources to supposedly talk to aliens. And, to me, that's all just to now that I realize drones are what they are and, all that shit and how much our society lies to us. I think most UFOs are just us. It's just technology they don't want us realizing they have. So, that's a UFO. Yeah, we could absolutely change like the whole airship concept. Airships were around long before the Wright brothers and their stupid plane. Airships were a common means of travel. And this is the 1800s. So imagine if airships had been being developed for the last 100+ years. Well, it just so happens that a lot of times the UFOs that people see are tubes. They look like tubes. Like airships, like modern day super advanced airships. I mean, it's just us. It's just us. Let's see. Environmental and health impacts are considered minimal due to the low concentrations of the substances used. Right. If you use a low amount, it's like the butane thing, right? We get fucking wax from butane, and it's only got a low concentration of butane still left by the time the wax gets to you. Yeah, well, that 0.1, 0.2, 0.5%, whatever it is, 1%, 2%, whatever, that builds up. Yeah, there may be low concentrations in each spray, but if you spray 1,000 fucking times in an hour, well, that's going to be a much higher concentration. But I've said for years, I think chemtrails are a distraction. It's something to get us looking at something, so we're not looking at Israel. And I feel really stupid talking about this right now, but it's a necessity. People need to know that, like, all you have to do is look. You don't have to go crazy conspiracy, Alex Jones, you don't have to, Anomaly, that clown. You don't have to go that route to get the David Icke, to get your answers. The whole idea of like the reptilian shapeshifter, blah, blah, blah. It makes a lot of sense because you think like, who can push the button and say, all right, launch 49 missiles into a civilian area, killing however many hundreds, thousands of people like Trump did. Or like how Israel has killed 200,000 plus people in the last year. Women, children, civilians, just anybody, innocent men, all that shit. Just people just wanting to live. Who could do that? How can you be the type of person to I'm the victim by dropping American-made bombs from American-made planes on people with rocks and sticks? Like, how can you be that person and feel good about yourself? And when you understand, like, you then switch it to, like, look at how the average person looks at life, at cows, at chickens, at pigs, right? We basically grow them so we can consume them. They are life. You show anyone a baby cow, a baby chicken, or a baby pig, and even the hardest dude, like, oh man, I'm a big tough guy, he's gonna go, oh, you're so cute, look at the little chicken, chip, 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 chip. We all look at that and think, oh my gosh, this life is so precious. I can't wait for it to get older so I can eat it. I can wear its skin, we can skin it and then wear its skin. Make some shoes, make a belt, make a jacket out of it. Ooh, yeah, I like leather. Don't waste any of it. No. Make some hog head cheese out of that brain. It's not really cheese either. It's just called cheese. Don't waste those hooves. Make those hooves into glue or whatever we do with that shit. Crush those bones. Use their bones to make beauty products. you know? Like, it's disgusting what we do to all of the life that we deem lower than us. Especially all you Christians who your Bible clearly says, you can use the animals. It doesn't say eat them. It says use the seeds and the grains as your meat, which is strange because that's where you get a lot of protein from. You don't need to eat meat to get a bunch of protein as long as you eat a bunch of grains and beans and legumes and shit like that. But you instead want to eat dead animals. Like, it's so gross. It is so fucking gross. And if you had to do it yourself, you couldn't. If you had to go kill the cow that you raised from a little thing, they have to treat them shitty. If they make connections to it, how do you kill something you make a connection to? Right? I mean, it's crazy, but that's when you look at how we as people treat those life forms and you say, who can push the button? Well, you know what's real comforting to say? It's real comforting to say it's reptilians. It's a more advanced version of us. We are to them what cows are to us. And as fucked up and as crazy as it sounds, it's like, okay, that makes me feel better. At least I have an answer, and I know, it's a bad guy, and they're not us. They're a different bad guy altogether. Well, the funny thing is, if you just change that viewpoint from reptilian to the chosen to the Jays, it makes just as much sense without the fantasy aspect of it. You can even have the whole shapeshifter thing. It's not like physical. It's a figurative shapeshifter. The number one hip hop group of all time is the Beastie Boys. For real. According to Rolling Stone, gee, I wonder who owns and controls Rolling Stone. I wonder who the majority of the writers of Rolling Stone are. The number one hip hop group ever is the Beastie Boys. Talk about chameleons. Talk about shapeshifters. So as soon as you can make all of the fantasies a lot more realistic if you want to. And you realize that, they tell you that the conspiracy is this really complicated, you probably don't really understand it, and they worship things and they do rituals and all these things behind the closed doors that you probably could do and get the same results, but you don't know them. It's all super complicated, and you have to have the right place, and you have to have the right items, and you have to say the right incantations, and when you have to be able to worship Satan, because they all worship Satan. Oh no, not Satan. I don't even want to hear about it if it's Satan. Oh Lord, Lord, Lord. And that way they have you just completely distracted. Look at that. Look, the main meeting room at the Vatican it's shaped like a serpent's head. Oh, they're hiding their clues right in front of us. Are they hiding clues or are they leaving breadcrumbs? Are they telling you to go in this direction and that direction and all that shit? Because again, you can believe in God and Satan, sure. But if you're smart and you just sort of you look at that from a more realistic point of view, say to yourself, can everything that's explained with God and Satan be explained by any real life group of people? And you'll always get your answer. Yeah. Absolutely. Is the earth round? No. No. Seems pretty obvious it's not. And it's another one of those things that you have to have a lot of faith to believe it. You have to have a lot of faith in the opposite of what you see and experience and all that stuff. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. It's a brown ball flying through space, going around the sun, 67,000 miles per hour. Good thing we have that super intelligent gravity. You know, gravity is the smartest force in the universe. It knows exactly how much pressure it takes to hold a bunch of water, like gajillion, fafillion, papillion pounds of water, to a round ball spinning at 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, while also knowing how to put just enough pressure on the little cotton seed floating in the wind. Hold that water on. Let the seed float. Let what? Ready? Gravity knows I'm about to do this. Gravity knew that. Gravity knew to let go of enough pressure for a second to let me fly up in the air for a minute and then come back down. It has nothing to do with the thrust and my weight and all that. It's gravity. It's a force. It's pulling me down. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Ready for another meth blunt?
Mm-hmm.
Meth blunts. Meth blunts. Always smoking on those meth blunts. Meth and crack. It's got meth and crack. Yeah. Because I can read. Because I know things. Because I ask questions a lot of you aren't smart enough to ask or answer. Let's see. But concerns persist over the potential accumulation of seeding agents in sensitive ecosystems. Gee, you think? You think accumulation? It's like, you understand that when they prescribe you something like Paxil or Depakote or any of those disgusting fucking synthetic nastinesses that you don't even know what the fuck is going on. They tell you it's going to take like 3 weeks to 2 months for the drug to accumulate in your system and regulate the levels. So for the first month or so, you're probably going to feel like you took the brown acid. And it's like, but don't worry, you'll feel better afterward. And if you don't feel better, if in fact it escalates to you wanting to kill yourself, we got something else for you to take. We'll adjust this.
Don't stop taking the one that makes you feel like you want to kill yourself.
Right. Actually, you know what? You should probably take more.
Yeah.
First, we'll try giving you more. Then we'll be like, hey, maybe it's too much. We'll try giving you less. Then we'll give you something else on top of it. Then we'll up those. Then we'll stop both of those and switch you to something else. And like, we did this a lot yesterday and talking about how it's just a business. It's a fucking business. And by allowing, you know, it's the same thing as government. By allowing lobbyists to affect decisions based on the decision makers' paychecks. Like, it's foolish for doctors to not take advantage of the biggest rips. Why wouldn't they? That's what we're all here. Nobody, you know, in our society, everybody sort of figures it out pretty early that, you know, as great as it would be that we were all here looking out for each other and yada, 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 we're not. You better look out for yourself. You better not help people to the point where you're in the poorhouse, because when you're in the poorhouse, those same people aren't going to help you. Probably because they can't. I mean, it's not even like a, you know, if somebody was in that position themselves, they didn't just magically pull themselves out. But you know, this idea of accumulation is a common theme across anything. So to think that accumulation from spraying, I mean, I don't even know how to put it into perspective. Like, what are we, billions of pounds of pesticides? You know, think about it like Olympic pools filled with pesticide. How much, they're spraying so fucking much every day, every other. I think a lot of it's done at nighttime now, so we don't see it. You wake up early enough, you'll see the remnants of it every morning. The practice has a long history, with initial experiments dating back to the 1940s. Like what's his name said in the beginning. But again, we're just gonna skip. Well, I guess cloud seeding from planes and stuff, because the Meyer guy would build a giant tower on the person's property and then mix up a bunch of chemicals and leave the chemicals on top of the tower, and within a few days it would start raining. So the chemicals had to, fumigate, had to evaporate up into the fucking sky, and then that would create the shit, apparently. And has been used for various purposes, including agricultural benefits, water supply augmentation, and event planning. Right, there are companies out there that advertise that they can actually do the opposite. They can seed it so that the clouds won't be there on your wedding day. You want to have your wedding day and nice pictures and no rain. Well, give this company a few $1,000s, and apparently they have the okay to spray a bunch of shit in the sky. You would think that would require a lot of oversight, but who knows? Legal frameworks primarily focus on prohibiting military or hostile use of weather modification techniques. I mean, think about it. Why would it have to be there? If it really isn't anything sinister, why would there have to be legal framework to prevent the military? And who's going to sue the military? I mean, I wonder what those legal frameworks are. Hostile use of weather modification techniques, leaving the ownership and regulation of cloud seeding activities to national discretion. Well, if companies can advertise, for whatever events you want, how much regulation could there possibly be? Is the woman there safe? No, she's not. She's held against her will. And I beat her all the time, and I'm constantly smoking meth and crack blunts, and I drink all the time, and I abuse my children, and I kick my dogs and cats, and I'm all these horrible things. Hey, by the way, does that change any of this shit? Does if that shit's true about me, how does that take away from cloud seeding? I know you guys are you dumb Jays are trying to shoot the messenger so that anybody watching that might be like, hey, this guy might making some sense here, so that they feel bad about feeling that way or sharing this shit. Because you guys should be liking, subbing, sharing, doing all those things, of course. Don't forget to get your free download, www.the-bilderberg-group.com. The link will be in the description after the fact. Or if you want to leave early and go get it, just go to a previous video. Also a link to our Facebook page. If I'm not live there, I'm live, or not live here, I'm live there. But you can also see all of our videos. All of our music videos. I know, crazy, right? Lots of people ask you for donations. Just donate to my thing. It really helps out a lot so I can make more of these videos. I want to give you shit for free. Go to my page and get your free download. If you want to give money, you absolutely can. You can pay for it. We're not stopping you from paying for it. But we are stopping you from paying for it. And all we ask is that you share it with someone. Instead of charging you $5 for the download, I'd rather give you that $5 and say, hey, share it with someone. I'd rather buy you sharing it with someone for $5 than charge you $5, the $5 to download it. You get it? Oh, my music is garbage, and I'm like beat my wife and I kick my dog and I make all these things up as I'm reading. Like, again, the same people that trash everything else I'm doing and saying, oh, they don't like my music. Oh, what a surprise. But if you think, hey, these same stupid people that are willing to say anything, even if it doesn't really make sense, they're the ones that don't. Maybe you might like it then. Think about it that way. Like I say, everything they do works to my favor. You have to understand that. They don't. They don't understand that they're stupid all the time, so that when they say that my music, well, everything else you guys say is wrong or stupid. So why would anybody think your opinion on this is probably accurate? You're just dumb. But thank you. I appreciate it. Despite skepticism and debate over its efficiency and environmental impact, cloud seeding continues to be explored and applied in regions worldwide as a tool for weather modification. I mean, seriously, how many people do you think you could say that they modify the weather by spraying shit in the sky? And they'd go, come on. No, they do. Your brother, do you think your brother would believe it?
Yeah.
Right. Most of the people that you would talk to about it, not saying your group of people, I'm just saying regular people. Most people are going to be like, come on, you're such a conspiracy theorist. You just believe everything you see on YouTube. YouTube. It's right here. It's fucking right here. I'm going to go history first. Let's go with the history of it first. So the history starts with a whole bunch of pictures of planes. The Beach 18 used dry ice for cloud seeding in the early post-war era U.S. In the early post-war era, well, we've had a few. Lockheed 18, cloud seeding from Wagga Airport in 1958, Australia. Like, these guys are cloud seeding with planes that have propellers and shit. Yep, go ahead. That's how advanced technology was back when they were doing this. The T-28A Trojan Rainmaker, 1960, U.S. The Curtiss P-40 Rainmaker, 1964, U.S., now at Yanks Air Museum. I mean, what the fuck do you think they're calling them this for? The Curtiss P-40N, N1232N, Weather Modification Company Cloud Seeding. Harvard Hail Defense, 1964, Canada. The Harvard Hail Defense? Defending against hail? A Cessna 210, 2006, Australia. So we just jumped from 1964 to 2006. The Cessna Skymaster 2015, Israel. And the Alpha Jet 2014 in Monaco. Again, we go from 1960, there's the early post-war one, Australia in 58, to Trojan 60, Curtiss in 64, the other Curtiss at some point, and the Harvard Hail Defense in 64. So that's 6 pictures in 64, or from 64 to before that. And then we just jumped to 2006. Yeah, we just jumped 40 fucking years. There was no advancements or anything like that in that 40 fucking years. That's really crazy. In 1891, wow. Back when we were capable of building all sorts of skyscrapers and shit in like a year. Louis Gathman, Do you think Louis Gathman is probably like Chinese or something?
Yes.
Suggested shooting liquid carbon dioxide into rain clouds to cause them to rain. Where did they get liquid carbon dioxide from in 1891? Let's see. It's liquid carbon dioxide is blue. Liquid carbon dioxide is the liquid state of carbon dioxide which cannot occur under atmospheric pressure. Wait. It cannot occur under atmospheric pressure. So, how could you then shoot it into clouds in what method did they have for obtaining liquid carbon dioxide in 1891? It can only exist at a pressure of 5.1 ass to mouth, ATM. That's 75 psi. Under 31.1 degrees Celsius or 88 degrees Fahrenheit, temperature of critical point, and above minus 56.6 Celsius or minus 69.9 Fahrenheit, temperature of triple point. Low temperature carbon dioxide is commercially used in its solid form. What, bud? Then turn off the stove. Somebody must have bumped it. Is that what happened?
I was using a toothpick to get dirt on my foot, and it was getting hotter. I was wondering what it was, and a little bit of smoke came out, so I just stopped it.
What are you
Yeah, you have to investigate.
Okay.
Yes. When you smell gas, you must investigate. Or when a kid says they smell gas, you must investigate. Sorry, people. I am in present wrapping. Hell. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oy. So how y'all doing? Y'all doing good? Oh, this time of year. I tell ya. I'm sorry, I don't know what you guys were talking about. Wrapping Christmas presents and watching Christmas movies. That is my stuff for the day. Good gravy. All right, you're good. Ah, small talk. Yes. Looks like the blinks. Oh, that's funny. I don't have my damn glasses on, so I can't read all that small print. And, you know, if it's insulting, I really don't give a fuck anyhow. Good day and God bless. Damn, I smoke. But you never smoke in front of my kids. It's not in front of the kids. They're downstairs, first of all. I have the blunt. Second of all, so what we've seen, you know, and I took this cue from a friend of mine that had already had kids. You know, they had had kids when they were younger. Um, and I know how my parents approached it. But when you teach your children that plants are medicine, that they are here to, you know, help the earth heal and us heal and everything, um, it's not demonized the way it was back in the 70s and 80s and even part of the 90s. So, you know, to think that you should, anytime you do anything where you're like hiding it from the kids, and if you think your kids don't notice you're hiding shit, first of all, you're crazy. Second of all, it makes it more mysterious. Third of all, it entices them. So, like I said, if you educate your kids and teach them
I
that
don't know why
plants are
you're even
medicine and
engaging in this conversation with
blah
these
blah blah.
idiots.
Well, somebody said I would
Who
never smoke in
cares?
front of my kids.
We don't
Well,
smoke in front
we
of our
don't
kids.
smoke in front of
Right.
them,
Who gives a shit what they say?
but they know
They're
that we
they're
smoke.
just
They know
trying
what
to
it's
bait you
for.
into saying anything. So when you acknowledge it, they for some reason that makes them be like, "Yay!" They're just stupid. They're just stupid. It is what it is. There's a reason why we separate ourselves, and it is what I mean. It just is what it is.
Right, but
Um,
don't teach anybody,
Low
like
temperature
I said,
carbon
you don't
dioxide
treat
is
it
commercially used in forms
bad.
known as dry ice. Solid CO2 sublimes at minus 78.5 Celsius or minus 109.3 Fahrenheit. At Earth's atmospheric pressure, that is, it transitions directly from solid to gas without an intermediate liquid stage. The uses and applications of liquid carbon dioxide include decaffeinating coffee, extracting virgin olive oil from olive paste, and fire extinguishers as a coolant. Oh, and as a coolant. Liquid carbon dioxide is a type of liquid which is formed at highly compressed and cooled gases is formed from highly compressed and cooled gaseous carbon dioxide. It does not form under atmospheric conditions. It only exists when the pressure is above 5.1 atm and the temperature is under 88 degrees and above minus 69 degrees. They just literally like copied and pasted that same point again. The chemical symbol remains the same as gaseous carbon dioxide, CO2. It is transparent and odorless, and the density of it is 1101 kg m to the third, whatever that means. Uh, when the liquid is at full saturation at minus 37 degrees Celsius or minus 35 degrees Fahrenheit. It's so weird that, like, why does that happen? Why does the Celsius and Fahrenheit shit only line up at minus 32 degrees or whatever it is? And then it gets drastically different again. Like, it's just, it seems weird to me. The fact that we have differences, it's just more of that keeping us from communicating, keeping us divided. The solubility, I don't care shit. Okay, let's see. I want to know the hit. Oh, that's it. I don't get to know how they where it came from, how we figured out how to do it. Use of liquid carbon dioxide includes preservation of food. Don't care. Food. The liquid carbon dioxide not only reduces combustion by displacing oxygen, it also cools the burning surface to avoid further damage. Solvent extraction using compressed liquid CO2 can, okay, liquid carbon dioxide is considered as means of CO2 transportation for underground and subsea storage purposes. Yeah, there's no like how do they get it? But in 1891, Louis Gathman suggested shooting liquid carbon dioxide into rain clouds to cause them to rain. Am I the only one that thinks that's just ludicrous? Think about what you think 1891 looks like. What does 1891 look like in your head? I mean, it's funny because I guess like in my head it's different, and my wife said it's probably different because I'm constantly like showing your pictures and stuff. But when you think about like what you thought it was prior to recently, I mean, we all knew there were big cities with skyscrapers that existed. We never really gave too much thought to it. We've all seen pictures of, you know, horses and wagons and shit going down the streets, the muddy streets of a fucking New York that looks the same as it does today. or Chicago or Detroit or any of these.
So
Like,
at the same time, Ernie was born in 1899, and yes, he was born in, in a different country. He was born in Scotland, but like he used to talk about how it was before electricity and before all that. Like they lit
it would be
their house
interesting.
with candles. They heated their house with the fireplace.
It would be interesting to have an Ernie to talk to
I know.
nowadays,
Today,
because
I know.
Ernie, you were his little girl, so he's not telling you the scary shit. That's the one thing that
Well, and I'm sure some of that scary shit got blocked out.
right,
Because he was a
but the
kid.
one thing everybody does
You
is
know.
is almost arrogantly, and it's foolishly arrogant, but you think that your grandparents are telling you the truth. You think that your grandparents, because you might have a really good relationship with them. My wife and her grandmother were really, really close. So my wife automatically is going to assume that her grandmother is telling her the truth, especially because her grandmother did talk to her about shit that she never told any other people. They were close. I'm not denying that. But I think especially the people that grew up and maybe even came out of the reset, or their parents or grandparents came out of the reset. That shit is so terrifying that they're not gonna terrify you with that. Especially if they were raised to know that if you start talking about these things and you're accurate, then there's a good chance the men in black will show up at your door. I mean, they're your grandparents. They love you like how we love our children. I assume when you're a grandparent, it like doubles. It's just something about that just happens. And you're not going to sit there and tell your grandchild, the real scary stories. Like, I'm not going to sit around and tell my grandchildren about COVID. Maybe when they get older and they ask about it, that's one thing. But we're not going to be like, okay, it's time to go to sleep. Let's talk about your COVID fairy tale. You know, it's gonna take a lot. And the thing is, we've had a lot of freedom. They didn't grow up in that freedom. So all the freedom got taken away, and then you knew that if we went too far, they'd take the freedom away. You probably wouldn't be pushing that shit for your grandchildren. If you're watching, like, share, and sub. It helps. There's a reason why fucking content creators say these things. I don't make any money off this shit, so I'm not worried about that. I just want more people. What I'd like is actually intelligent people to come in and have the conversation. Because it just seems like it's a bunch of the same dumb trolls every day. The Israeli pedos that the team Jorge. Like, if anybody knew, if you take anything from this video, go look up Team Jorge. Teamjorge. If I say Team Jorge to you, are you gonna think it's Israel? Aren't you gonna think Jorge? That's like Mexican or some shit. South American. That's Latino. Jorge. No, that's Israel. And that's the proof that Israel controls your social media. 100%. Go look it up. Smoking gun proof. Also look up the Samson option. The Samson option is 100% proof that the people committing genocide right now against a smaller group of people will commit genocide against the rest of us if they ever feel threatened. If Israel is ever invaded. Go look this shit up. Tell me what I'm wrong about. I would love to know. All right. So we are back to cloud seeding. Because we went with liquid carbon dioxide. So Louis Gathman in 1891 suggested shooting liquid carbon dioxide into rain clouds to cause them to rain. Yada, yada, yada. During the 30s, what? So, I mean, where is the rest of that? Maybe let's look up Louis Gathman. Louis Gathman. Boy, that's a familiar looking fella, isn't it? Gotta love that chat GPT, same narrative, same thing over and over again. Louis Gathman, August 11th, 1843, June 3rd, 1917, he's another German American. Man, if you look at our history, like it's all German. Oh, so many of the inventions, the biggest, bestest people either come from Germany, they're German descent, they spend a bunch of time in Germany, and like it's really strange the more I've looked into. So he was a German American engineer and inventor who is best remembered as the inventor of the Gathman gun, a large howitzer. Fucking gotta love a gun maker. He was born August 11th, 1843, in the Kingdom of Hanover. What is the Kingdom of Hanover? Was established October 14th by the Congress of Vienna with the restoration of George III to his Hanoverian territories after the Napoleonic era. It succeeded the former electorate of Hanover and joined 38 other sovereign states in the German Confederation in June 1815. The kingdom was ruled by the House of Hanover, a cadet branch of the House of Welf, in personal union with Great Britain between 1714 and 1837. Since its monarch resided in London, a viceroy, usually a younger member of the British royal family, handled the administration of the Kingdom of Hanover. Do you guys understand that they talk about this shit like it's today? Like we just all accept this idea of like, okay. So first of all, they're capable of building all these huge parliament buildings and all the royal this, the royal that, like all these buildings that were founded in this and founded in that. They're like, so it's 17 something or other. I wake up because the rooster is crowing. My wife has already been up for like 2 hours just trying to make some fucking pancakes. She's got to fucking mash the wheat and go milk the cow and fucking, get some eggs from the chicken. Like it's a rough life. Maybe. I mean, that's sort of how we think of it. But then again, you look and you find that the viceroy of this or the whatever other, I don't know, the fucking other administration titles, whatever, but that they actually lived in this mansion that still exists to this day, made of stone and marble and blah blah blah, like was rebuilt after the fire. And but like they wake up with the rooster or whatever, they jump on their horse, they eat their breakfast while their wife then, the wife who was a woman, so she wasn't allowed to learn how to read, she wasn't allowed to learn how to math and science and go through school and shit. Women were often married off at a very young age, and they were trained from birth to be servants, to be good servants. So they weren't educated. But as the man would get ready to go to work that day in his tights, in his Captain Crunch shirt, and he'd put on his powdered wig and his Paul Revere hat, all his tights and all his accoutrements. And actually it was really cold, so they would always put those big ass like fur jackets on and shit, and he'd walk around with his one hand in his shirt pocket. But as he would go, the woman would then be in charge of educating their 5 or 6 children while she was probably still pregnant.
And cooking.
And cooking, because she'd have to be cooking lunch almost immediately. Which no, they didn't even eat lunch, right? They ate supper at like 2 something and whatever. But she would have to get the later meals started while also, cleaning the house without a vacuum. Lazy bitches today. You don't even know. You got a vacuum and you're like, oh, I hate vacuuming. Well, imagine what it was like for poor Marianne. But she would also educate the children because that's where all the men got their, right? Everybody was homeschooled. So she must have had a bunch of homeschooling books that she probably got from the local market like 3 miles away that she somehow got to, I don't know. But the man would then go to his job at Parliament where he would like sit there with other guys dressed like him and they were doing this by like candlelight in these huge buildings. Think about these huge buildings that they were capable of building. And think about like go down in your basement even during the daytime. If I go down in my basement and I go in the pantry, that is an area that's basically completely walled off except for the slits at the top and the bottom of the door. If I go in just one room inside the room where no windows have access to, it's fucking dark. You can't see broad daylight. You can't see in the room. You can see the light coming through the little tops of the slits in the bottom, but that's about it. And these huge buildings that have multiple rooms inside rooms and floors, second floor, third floor, way down deep in the corridors and shit. No windows there. How are they lighting all? This was all just lit by candlelight, lantern light. And anybody had to pee or whatever, take a shit, they ran outside. Or they ran into the special chamber rooms where they would shit in a pot and then either take it outside or the chambermaid would take it. Like nobody talks about, when they took our jobs, technology ruins jobs, the machines are taking all the jobs. And at Ford, nobody ever talks about what happened to all the chambermaids. There were people that was literally their job. They were chambermaids. Somebody would come roll a deuce and they would take it and go throw it outside. Clean up the little chamber pot. And how much do you think they got an hour? How do you think did they clock in? Was there like a Flintstones style punch clock with a big parrot on? I mean, like they tell us it works like it did today, but think about how much it takes to make our system work. From what I'm told, they didn't have all that shit. They didn't have the modern day conveniences. And yet, we all just accept it like it's not, like it does make sense. Go to your, we went to the DIA, Detroit Institute of Art, and after we had been there for a really long time, we finally get to the section that I want to be in, and we got to go because it's getting late. But like, you look at these paintings, some of them are, as big as this fucking room. There's no brush strokes on the painting. They say that the layer of paint between the canvas and what you see is like razor thin. Yet somehow they were able to create these just incredible masterpieces. But a lot of times you'll see like scenic areas, or they'll paint like the Vatican Square or whatever it might be. And just about every painting, really, I do this all the time. I've trained myself to do this, and I think it's something that you should all practice because you don't do it naturally. When you're shown something, just like with the TV, when you're shown something, you watch the face on the TV. You don't look at the background. You don't look at what's going on in the picture. You pick it up subconsciously. That's where the subliminal stuff works, is because it's in the background and you pick it up, but you don't realize. But it's really fascinating. Like when you look at old paintings and stuff, You know, and they're all sitting there with their weird, and their hands, and all that goofy shit that you always see in paintings. Weird head placements and shit. But if you look at the background of the paintings, they took the time to paint the skyscrapers in the background. And it'll be 1542 and shit. And you'll be like, that looks like an 8-story building. Who was building 8, 10, 15-story buildings back then? How? And they were doing it so proficiently. There are plenty of channels on here. The Lucian Aurelius channel, My Lunch Break, Mind Unveiled. These are all guys you should subscribe to, along with guys like Direct D and Press NH Now and Auditing Erie County, and a lot of those guys as well. Don't forget that. But today we're talking about the Tartaria guys. Jared Booster's another guy. These guys are like, you could show me any Bible video you want, and I'm just gonna sit there and pick the shit apart, point out how goofy it is. You know, it's just gonna be my nature. The videos that these guys put out, they're doing what I do. They're literally reading the narrative that you're supposed to read and being like, hey, does this make sense? And if they're just jackasses, just fucking around and they're not correct and there's nothing to what they're saying, I would do the same thing. And I do. There are plenty of things that I pick apart on what they say. I don't just sit there silently watching. I question everything. But I end up questioning much less, and much more of it you just watch and you go, yeah, you know what? That makes more sense. Something's going on here. You start looking into star forts and shit like that. Are you kidding me? Do any of you think that the primitive people were capable of making star forts? It just doesn't make any sense. It really is just, some of these star forts are humongous. And they're, what? All right, dude. Okay, so he scared you. So what? What does that, how does that affect, like, what does that mean you got to then turn physical? Hello? You didn't hear what I said? Why? Is it because you weren't listening? Huh? Why are you talking so low I can't hear you now? Huh? All right. Can you?
Yeah. What was the exact subject? I just feel bad jumping because I didn't. I was.
Well, tell them about what you think of Tartaria.
I mean, I guess I don't. That's the thing. I don't. I have seen the pictures and the information that he has shared with me, and I find it fascinating. And you know, it's definitely not a far-fetched concept. I'm sure there was all kinds of technology that got lost, got taken away, hidden, whatever, over the years. So, you know, was it possible that a great reset occurred? Of course, I totally think that that's entirely possible. Um, my thing is I don't personally spend the time researching and all of that because it's not in my priority list. I have too much else going on to look into it, and you know, and part of that is because I have the luxury of living with somebody else that does, and can, you know, basically summarize and tell me the important parts so I don't have to. You know, there is that. There's, there's something to that, of course. But for the most part, uh, I don't think much about it at all. My brain's too busy doing all kinds of other shit, especially this time of year. Are you kidding me? I don't have time for that. But as far as the concept of it and the possibilities and all that, I mean, absolutely. Why wouldn't it be possible? It's pretty arrogant to think that we have all the answers now. They were all stupid back then and knew nothing. Like, they were still humans. They still had the same brains. They didn't have access to the same type of information, but that could also be crippling at the same time. What am I looking for? Oh, gift tags. Um, so that's not always necessarily a good thing either. So I don't know. It's definitely like some of the architecture. It's fascinating. It's extraordinary.
Thing off sideways. It's the paintings. That's what I was talking about beforehand, and how you see these paintings where there's the proof is right. Like, what do you like if you go look at paintings of like, for the people that claim that, you know, oh, that's just clouds, because we're still talking cloud seeding, so I'm bringing it back around. The people that are like, oh, that's just clouds, and how the system in like 2018, 19, whatever it was, suddenly decided that there were 115 new cloud formations. They came up with like eight or 10 new cloud formations. And you just go, well, you're telling me that for all of the time we've had XYZ clouds, but now suddenly we have XYZ 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have like all the, how? How did they just go unnoticed for such a long time? Um, I mean, it's you, and so you think like I've been talking about one of the creepiest ones to me is when you're standing outside and you look up and it looks like you're standing on the bottom of the ocean and you can see the waves going overhead. And it's like, what the fuck is making the sky do that? Because that's the entire sky. That's not just the clouds. That's like the whole thing is being fucked with. And again, I mean, back in the day, painters, what was going on in the sky was like a really popular thing to paint. Because, I mean, if you lived in Michigan, it's not like you knew to paint fucking elephants and shit. You never saw an elephant. You never saw a tiger or, any of that shit. So you would paint, people painted scenery all the time. People painted clouds. There are endless paintings that exist or have existed of either amazing clouds or shitty clouds. But you never see a painting where somebody paints it and it looks like you're standing on the bottom of the ocean. And, me being somebody with a cell phone and I'm in a car and I can watch TV and I have all these distractions for me to notice and take and be like, wow, this is incredible. What the fuck is going on? If I'm an artist, I'm gonna depict that, especially when again I don't have all those distractions. And painting the sky is something I do all the time. And yet there's not paintings of whole clouds, whole punch clouds or whatever they call them. There's not paintings of big roll clouds, where it looks like it's a big fucking wave rolling over or whatever. Where are all those paintings from back in the day? All the artists that existed that were painting, they would paint normal fucking blue cloud skies and shit, but never ever thought to paint one of those giant roll clouds. They happened. Oh yeah, they happened. They just never painted them. Hey Ryan, I'm sorry, not the first hand encounter. Why wouldn't unicorns have existed? Why not? I mean, it's nobody's gonna see a rhino and be like, oh, that's a horse with a horn on its head. Nobody. You've never seen a big fat fucking monster gray horse with short fucking fat, just monster, scariest fucking monster you can imagine. I don't think there's too much scarier than an elephant, a hippo, oh my God. Can you just imagine how terrifying that thing would be? If silverbacks suddenly, or if they just suddenly became, they got the Adam fruit. Good thing the silverbacks didn't get that Adam fruit, huh? Because we'd be fucked. Those things the silverback could just grab your head and just grab you like this and just break your neck. Or just boom, one just big shot from its big fucking club hand and you're done. Good thing they didn't get the Adam fruit or the tigers. Isn't it funny how either belief you have, you believe in Adam and Eve in the Bible, or you believe in science and evolution and all that. Isn't it fantastic that whatever it is that made monkeys turn into humans didn't make anything else turn into humans? Because goddamn, could you imagine the tiger people? The polar bear people? Holy fuck. We would absolutely lose. Why didn't that happen? You think Terrence McKenna, so you're saying so none of the tigers, roaming the Serengeti or whatever, the lions, whatever, ate the fucking cow shit mushrooms? Only the monkeys did and got the consciousness and I think, therefore I am. And really? Do you not understand how stupid both of them are? What? All of the two beliefs that you're supposed to believe in, and most of you actually believe in both, God and the Big Bang, they are the same fucking story, just told a little differently. Either way, I mean, just think about how ridiculous it is. I think the Big Bang Theory is actually more ridiculous than the religious. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think science, the scientific, theory. Again, it's a theory, but the way that all of it, the whole theory of evolution, is even dumber than the dumbass religious nonsense. Holy fuck! I can't believe I'm saying this shit. I can't believe I'm saying this shit. But really, when you think about it, and so the clumps, the dust, it forms the star lights itself on fire. More clumps happen, and instead of lighting themselves on fire, their insides light on fire, and on Earth, it starts raining for some reason. We're in the semivious zone. So planets can have water and have life in the subniveous zone. But we our planet starts raining. Suddenly, a rock falls from the sky, and it has a single-celled life form on it that survives the whole falling from the sky thing. And after millions of years, it evolves into a double-celled organism, and more millions of years, it evolves and evolves and evolves. I'll be right back. Just gotta run over there real quick. Up there.
You know what? I'll go because I was going to stop at
Okay.
the gas station and get blunts.
Go for it. He is in a Silver Explorer. Hmm?
Okay, does he have a name?
Mark. Mark, bark, banana, fana, faux fark. But, so that after millions and millions of years, the ocean is full of fish and wildlife, and all sorts of marine life. And one day, a fish walks out of the water and can breathe. Again, that's like saying one day a human can just suddenly start breathing into water.
That's the Jesus side, right?
No, I'm saying this is even more ridiculous than the Jesus shit.
Oh, this is science?
Yes, this is science. So the fish walks out of the water and it turns into dinosaurs. And the dinosaurs are huge, way bigger than we houses and shit. Way bigger. Yep. 2 and 3. Yep. They say that actually that elephants are as big as land mammals can get because the weight of their stomachs and shit would rip through if they were any bigger. There's just too much mass to be any bigger. But apparently, dinosaurs were a lot bigger. And some of them could fly. Some of those fish evolved into lizards that could fly. I mean, right? Isn't that amazing? And then they lived like that for a really long time. There were still fish. Not all the fish walked out of the water and shit. Only that one fish that turned into all the different types of fucking dinosaurs. But one day another rock falls out of the sky and kills almost everything. And I guess at this point, some of the fish had turned into small mammals as well. But they were all hidden and stuff. And after everything was wiped out, these small mammals and some of the flying ones, I guess, turned into birds and chickens. And the other mammals, if they survived, again, these are fish that turned into these. They then, or maybe more fish came out of the water, and those things turned into monkeys and tigers and lions and elephants and all these other things. It came from evolution. Came from evolution. And eventually, because of evolution, the monkeys, the only ones, none of the other animals did this. The monkeys kept evolving and turned into people, and supposedly the Wright brothers plane was in the early 1900s, like 1917 or I don't know. No, like earlier than 1905 or some shit like that. 1909, I don't know. The Wright brothers. We learned how to fly, and here we are a little over 100 years later, and we have all these answers. We know. I mean, a telescope's only about 400 years old, but we still, we discovered Mercury, the planet Mercury, in 262 BC somehow. You gotta go. He's up there. And that's the scientific explanation. I know I make it sound goofy, but that's what you have to believe, man. And most of you believe a version of that along with the version that God, you know, just sat there making stuff and Adam was like, yeah, that's a giraffe. Yay! Like the whole Genesis bullshit. It's just stupid. It's all just super, super stupid. And it's funny because the third option, the option that I sort of think, or do think, is that just like how drones and shit explain UFOs and stealth explains UFOs and the government lying to us explains UFOs and how chat GPT being a thing that exists now explains where history came from, where the history narrative came from. That they plugged in a bunch of shit and they got this narrative written for them that because they were lazy, they never thought that we would be where we are as dumb goyim because they underestimated us like they always do. They didn't realize that we'd figure it out. So that's why, so like the further back you go in history, the more amazing people are. They all, it turns out that, instead of it being a bunch of different people that did a bunch of different shit, the further back you go, you have like your Ben Franklins and your, Thomas Jeffersons and these people and these Edisons and these people who are these incredible polymaths who could just do anything. Just anything, they could fucking do it. If they needed it, they invented it. If they, and it became standard, and that's how we got, the bridges and it's just an incredible amount of bullshit. And it's because again, they didn't think that we would get access to Chat GPT. And I've been questioning history for such a long time, and the notion of how it was actually all written because there's so much of it, that was sort of a hiccup. But now that you understand that there's a Chat GPT that exists and probably has existed for much longer than we understand. Again, stealth was given to us in '89, and they had it from at least the 30s or 20 from the 30s or 40s, at least. So that's 50 years that we, the Goyim, are behind what they're actually capable of. At least. That's just in that one little thing. That's just in stealth technology. That has nothing to do with everything else that's available. To think that it's only that one, we're only 50 years with that one thing. Shit, we could be 200 years behind in other things. But when you think about like what are we capable of now? How far away do you think we are from building some sort of structure that the people inside don't know they're in? And there are invisible cameras everywhere. Shit, the birds. They, like everybody says on here, birds aren't real. They use the birds. They use bugs. What about bugs? Bugs could easily be cameras. We're talking about something so much more advanced than us. Like, if any of you watching me right now got beamed back to what we think 100 years ago was, or 150 years ago was. Again, not the Tartaria type of a narrative, but the official, Paul Revere bullshit kind of narrative. If you got beamed back to that time and you were, in front of the smartest people in the world and they could all understand you for some reason. And they were like, all right, what were you doing right now? And you were like, all right, I was in my house. I was in Michigan, so it was cold outside, snow on the ground, but we had our heat on. So it was a nice whatever degrees in the house. The heat? Okay. You had a fire going? No, we had heat. The TV was on in the background. I don't even remember what was on. But I was watching Guy Williams of the Bilderberg Group, www.the-bilderberg, BILDERBERG-group.com. Go get your free download. Link will be in the description, along with a link to the Facebook. It's all free. We don't ask you for shit. You can give, but we don't ask. Just share it. I was watching that guy. He's, on my phone, on my YouTube on YouTube, and imagine trying to explain that to people. How difficult do you think it would be to explain that to people? Just what you're doing right now, just watching me on YouTube, your phone. Like, how long would it take, do you think, for you personally? You got beamed back there, and they were like, cell phone network. Okay, build us one. How long do you think it would be before you could build a cell phone network? Especially without a cell phone that worked. Wouldn't that be pretty hard to do? All of us are so used to looking shit up. But you don't think about, like, that's 150 years ago. You're explaining cars, explaining planes flying overhead. Oh, yeah, we've got James Webb Space Telescope is out at the Lagrange points and blah, all the bullshit. Imagine trying to explain that to the people of that time. And so to think, what do you think we're going to be 150 years from now? 200, 500 years from now? Do you honestly think we are even 500 years from being able to build said dome that has, a very basic people in there that we can watch, grow and see how they progress and blah, blah, blah? You don't think that's something that we will do when we can? I mean, The Simpsons did it, and it's one of the oldest sort of sci-fi episodes, concepts ever. You think we're not going to do that? You think we're really that far away from shrinking technology? Being able to make things shrink down? Do you really think we're that far from it? When you look at where we are with supercomputers, with fractal mathematics and 3D printing and all that shit, you really don't think we're going to be able to do that? Something like the Fibonacci sequence, right? Doesn't the Fibonacci sequence existing in everything point to a manufacturer? Like, that's a base code that the computer that generated this reality that we live in, puts in it. That's the base code of everything. Isn't that how fractal mathematics and supercomputers, isn't that how all that works? And one code can generate all that. I mean, when you look at modern day video games, look at a game like Skyrim, the programmers aren't sitting there programming each individual blade of grass, each individual leaf, every bird or butterfly that happens to go through. It's an algorithm, and the computer randomly generates it. That's video games. And they're in video games, I mean, some of them today are just, you look at them and you're like, what the fuck? How do they do? If you're my age and Nintendo was amazing to you, and then when they dropped Genesis, you were like, holy shit, 3 buttons, how am I going to make 3 buttons work? Or the Mega Drive for you English folk. To be so arrogant that you think that we're not going to, 100 years from now, we won't be unrecognizably better than we are now. How does anybody have that sort of arrogance? Obviously, all the technologies that us dumbasses can sit around and fathom, they have J think tanks sitting around fathoming those things themselves. And, well, I'm a theoretical physicist. Yeah, I'm a theoretical physicist. I come up with things. A lot of times, most times they don't work, but every once in a while I'm a winner, and that means I live a really great life. Just think about how crazy all that shit is. So when you start denying that chemtrails are a thing, it's literally right here. We're in the cloud seeding. Louis Gathman is who we were talking about when we went into the Kingdom of Hanover. So we're going to go back to Louis Gathman, right? The German-American engineer and inventor who is best remembered for as the inventor of the Gathman gun, a large howitzer, amongst other things. This is the guy that supposedly first suggested shooting liquid carbon dioxide into clouds to make them rain in 1891. Like, I don't know how anybody hears that and doesn't go, that sounds like bullshit. How were we even able to obtain liquid carbon dioxide in 1891? We didn't have power tools. You know, we didn't have, like, you know, TVs, we barely had electricity if we did. I don't even know. Did we have electricity back then? 1891? Gathman was born in 1843 in Hanover. His father was a school teacher and instilled in his son a lifelong love of astronomy. That's it. That's the only, early life this incredibly common looking character. Doesn't that guy look very common like a bunch of other people you've seen? Career. He moved to the United States in 1864, so at 19. No, and eventually moved to Chicago, where he lived until the end of the 19th century, where he moved to Washington, D.C. Again, because back in those days, traveling all around like that, traveling from Germany to Chicago, well, from Germany to the United States, and then eventually to Chicago. Like, Germany to the United States. The United States is pretty big. United States is pretty big. So I guess we don't know exactly where in the United States he moved when he was 19, but eventually he moved to Chicago, where he lived until the end of the 19th century. Again, that's really, really fucking vague. Are we saying he moved like 1899? 1898? Like, when did he move? What are we talking about? When he moved to Washington, D.C. at that point. He started his career designing equipment for mills and farms and held numerous patents. Of course he did. We don't know where he went to school. We don't know how he got all this knowledge and education and ability to invent, but we don't need to know that. We just have to know that this dumb Jay is superior to us in every way, and just, elements of stories that are needed to be applied to someone, he gets to be that person. By the 1880s, now we're jumping at least 16 years. Gathman's patents were in such demand that he had to form a company to help track and produce his designs. This company, known as the Garden City Mill Furnishing Company, made milling machines which were sold all over the globe. I mean, he invented the machines, right? He invented because he would have to have invented the machines, to be able to fill his company. I mean, this company is probably pretty substantial. Of course, it's not blue, so you don't actually get to click on it and find any history on it. But they made milling machines, which were sold all over the globe. All over the globe. In the 1880s. How? How were the people in India hearing about the Garden City Mill Furnishing Company milling machines? And then how were they getting over there? Like, this is the 1880s, you guys. Do you not think about these things? Does this not make sense? Or does this make sense to you? This is fucking nuts to me. We're talking about, like, don't they have like wooden sailboats and shit like that? Or are we saying that by this point we had big steel barges somehow? Because suddenly, you look at the oldest pictures, man. The oldest pictures that exist are from around the 1840s, and a lot of times you'll see large barges made of steel, and what companies are building these things? Like this is, I know we all kind of the old shipyards, and the guys are hanging and they got their rivets going, and really, really, when did that? How did that whole shipping yard and shipbuilding company even come into existence? By the 1880s, Gathman had made enough money to have his family moved to the United States from Prussia. He also had 4 mansions built, 2 in Chicago, 1 in Washington, D.C., and 1 in Baltimore, Maryland.
That was really cool.
In the 1880s, this guy is having mansions. Now, I mean, I can't, I wish I knew what those mansions were, because I would love to see these incredibly opulent, stone marble brought in from Italy and all these other things. That this guy had a worldwide milling machine company in the 1880s. He invented the machines and invented the machines to build the machines that he invented.
Yeah.
Because again, you can't just invent machines and then have machines just produce those things. You have to invent the machines themselves. So that means he has to invent the machines and then have the machines built by who? Like, how do you back in the 1880s? Okay, I need a bunch of steel. I need a bunch of gears. I need this. I need all these different. Where do you get all that shit from? Or do you just have a bunch of steel and the ability to cut it up into different ways like that? I always think it's funny. You guys don't understand. One of the greatest inventions of all time. I would say it's a top 3 all-time invention. You guys have never heard of it. None of you have ever heard of it. And it's something that affected everyone's lives. And you're like, you know of its work, but you don't know of it. And you never really thought about it. But the idea of newspapers and print media existing the way it did, where they're able to run newspapers every day, every night. You never think about, well, how do they get all those words on the paper? What machines were used to do that? And the invention is called the linotype. Linotype. And it was invented in the early 1800s by a German clockmaker who yada yada'd the prototype, and after some success, yada yada'd the machine together that was then used in every printing house, every newspaper, every if they wanted to be able to produce daily newspapers, they used this linotype. And the linotype was a machine that it's basically a mini foundry. I mean, I don't even understand how it works, to be honest. Because they created what were called metal slugs. And they were round, like round pieces like this that they would lay in a row, and it would be a line of type, linotype. So each newspaper page would have however many lines of type. There would be a slug for each line, and it would go down, and they would lay those out in the mold, and then they would run the paper over that. So that's how you would get pages.
No one invited you.
That's how that's how they were able to do that every day. And after each slug was used, it was fed back into the machine, where apparently it would get melted down, and then reformed into the next line O type slug. They were metal. How do you have a
What do you think of a slug after you shoot a gun? So maybe they shot a bullet.
Shut up.
And then they
Shut up. I'm going to have to hit you.
shot bullet.
I am going to hit you again.
And there's your slug.
You guys, I swear, I'm going to hit her. Pow, bang, boom, right to the moon, Angela. Oh, isn't that funny? I punch you in the face so hard you go to the moon. Right to the moon, and oh man, good old wholesome back in the golden age of television. Wish we could go back there. Pow, bang, boom, right to the moon. Oh, don't you guys think that's hilarious? Why I oughta I'm gonna punch you in the face, my wife. Oh man. Whew. Sorry guys. Oh, that shit's so funny. Those honeymooners. That Jackie Gleason, boy. I mean, he's no Jackie Mason. But boy, was that funny. Oh man. Sorry, got distracted. Woo! Woo! It's those kids today in the video games. I swear. Can't we go back to those good old days? Where, you know, you'd work around the house all day in your pearls. I'd come home from work, and you knew I was home from work for the day because I'd loosen my tie. But if anybody came back to the door, well, I'd obviously put my tie back on. Wouldn't want anybody to catch me without my tie done up. And, you know, of course we have separate beds. We're a married couple. You know, sex is only for procreation, so why would we need, the same bed? We take all of our directions from virgins at the church. Oh man, it's just so stupid. Like can you imagine that? You're like, you know what? I think there's something wrong with my car. I'm gonna go to somebody I know has never driven a car before. That's who I'm going to get to diagnose my car. Whatever they say, I'm going to do that. You go and get your marital advice, your financial advice from virgins who don't pay bills. And you think that makes sense. And I'm the crazy conspiracy theorist because I question that. It's just the craziest. It's the craziest shit. And it's all about, guys, don't like my video. I keep forgetting that actually. Seems like every time I get too many likes on the video, it makes the video not work as well. Like I lose viewers. The more likes I get, the more viewers I get. Or I mean the less views I get. So don't like my video anymore. Dislike that shit. Maybe we'll have the opposite effect. I don't know. All right, so so by the 1880s, Gaffin had made enough money to have his family moved to the United States from Prussia. Four-man. Okay, we did that. In astronomy, and had built in the Chicago area during the 1880s. Just think about that. Observatories. So, I would imagine those include high-powered telescopes that have large mirrors and lenses and shit like that. I mean, does this make sense to you guys? I'm always fascinated by logistics. I think logistics ruin everything. When you start thinking about logistics, which includes motivation, what motivates people to do the thing. When you start looking at the logistics of things, a lot of times the shit just doesn't make any sense. It was around this time that New York had the horseshit crisis. Because again, these are these large cities with sidewalks that butt up to dirt roads, and there are horses and horse-drawn buggies and all that shit everywhere. Now, each horse produces about 15 to 30 pounds of shit each day, and they just do it when they want. There's no like, hey, I gotta pull over. They just shit. As they're going, they shit. I can't remember what the amount of water each horse needs each day, but it's gallons and gallons of water horses need each day. So to think, how did I mean, New York, they say they would have needed 275 of today's modern day garbage trucks to remove the amount of shit that they had every single day in the New York area. Now I know people will say Chicago is a smaller city and all that shit, but if you look at the floor plan of Chicago, if you look at the layout of Chicago, the way that they seemingly like manipulated the river and shit like that, and they had, obviously they had cement that could dry underwater. I mean, it's not like the rivers, that like there's a beach or anything. Everywhere in Chicago where the water is, there's a concrete wall that the water runs through. There's no just regular old beach access. So somehow, somebody, some way, tamed all that shit and put concrete in, and concrete that can dry in water, and like it's much more than you actually think about, right? And so it's the logistics that always fuck things up for me. And when we're talking about these observatories that were built in Chicago, I want to know about Chicago's horseshit crisis that they had to have. And I want to know how they were getting the marble from this, the lenses that were built. I want to know the history of those observatories. That would be really interesting. How did they get that? The logistics behind in observatories, those aren't generally on low ground in the middle of shit, right? Your observatory is going to be out at the top on like a peninsula or something like that, right? You don't build the observatory right in the middle of downtown. You're not going to see that much. So they somehow built these observatories, and I'd love to know. I mean, they were built in the 1880s, it says. And I would imagine most of them were probably built in a year or so, because that's just what we could do back then. But of course, I don't get any access to that. Gathman was very interested and had the 3 observatories built in Chicago area during the 1880s, one of which was a domed observatory tower, which he had installed on the side of his mansion on Lincoln Avenue. Pfft. Well, I guess I'm wrong. He's building his domed observatories right in the middle of downtown on Lincoln Avenue. In the 1890s, Lewis invented a sectional telescope lens. Of course he did. He was a machinist, right? He built milling machines. So why wouldn't he be also really good at making lenses? It's probably the exact same process, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can make a machine, you can make a lens. I give you a piece of glass and you're like, here, let me just... Now it's a lens. And not only is this a lens, this is a special lens that I've invented that's going to make telescopes better forever. I just did it right there. Boom. What are you going to do about it? It's amazing. U.S. patent number 531994 and 591466. The design called for using individual pre-ground discs of glass mounted in a black matrix. Boom, ba, ba, boom, ba, boom, ba, boom, in the matrix, matrix. Wow. Fucking A, man. The entire assembly would then be ground as if it were a traditional single-piece telescope lens blank. This would allow for a faster and cheaper method of producing large diameter telescope lenses for institutional observatories. It sounds like he's not only inventing the thing, but again, inventing a process for making the thing. It's interesting to say, he just, how did he invent this? I wish there was something blue I could go click on to find out the history of how he was sitting on the toilet one day and bonked his head and saw the flux capacitor and shit. Like, that's literally what we're talking about here. He just needed to invent something, so he did. That's what people did back then. They didn't do that forever, right? Forever we kind of lived the same way. And then suddenly in the 18-somethings, 17-somethings, we're just like, hey, I know this guy who can do everything. Why don't we just make him president and school teacher and engineering designer and company man and autobiographer, painter, father of nuclear physics. Let's just do that. And everybody's like, cool, what's his name? John something. John something. Oh, the entire blah, blah. This would allow for blah, blah. He had been in negotiations with Alfred Huntington Isham to produce a 100-foot diameter telescope for the Proctor Memorial Fund, with the plan calling for an international observatory on Mount St. Miguel and renamed the mountain as Mount Gathman. Holy fuck. A 100-foot diameter telescope? 100-foot diameter telescope, not length, the diameter from, like, you're looking at the circle from one side to the 100-foot? 100-foot telescope? What? What? And they're gonna rename a mountain over for this guy and shit? That's incredible. Lewis was also involved. I mean, did that go through? Said he had been in negotiations with the guy to do the thing. And the plan was to calling for an international observatory on Mount St. Miguel and renaming the mountain as Mount Gathman. Well, that's strange. It's also strange how he has that very J look. But we don't get to hear anything about his family. Like, I looked into his early life, and we'll see. Maybe we'll find out more. I don't know. Lewis was also involved in 19th century weather modification projects, and in 1891 received a patent, U.S. patent 462795, for a rainmaking. It's a weird sentence. For a rainmaking in which liquid carbon dioxide was released into the atmosphere by explosion, either from an artillery shell or by being carried aloft by a balloon. Because, fucking A, big balloons and shit. He also wrote a book on the subject, Rain Produced at Will. Like, this is where, again, the average person is going to tell you that you're a crazy kook conspiracy theorist if you say that the government in 2024 knows how to manipulate the weather and make it rain if they want to. And yet, this guy is writing books about it in 1891 when he received a patent. Yeah. Liquid carbon dioxide, from what it says, it doesn't exist. Liquid carbon dioxide is dry ice. Dry ice goes from solid to gas. It doesn't have a liquid state. The only way it can exist in the world is under specific pressure, like lots of pressure and at certain temperatures. How did they compress gases in 1890? We didn't have power tools.
That makes no sense.
I mean, seriously, it don't make no sense. And it's the same narrative that wants you to believe all this shit that don't make no sense. That's also telling you Israel is the victim here, and yeah, it's genocide, but you're not allowed to talk about it. And yeah, you know, they killed your Jesus and they're the bad guys in your Bible, but they're also your God's chosen people, even though they're a different religion and they look down on you. Understand, man. It's all connected. That's why I'm wasting my time doing this. It's why I'm wasting my time today reading about fairy tales, because I want to show you that if they're going to lie to you and give you fairy tales about this bullshit, they're not above lying to you now. Calling the perpetrator the victim and telling you you're not allowed to talk about it. Not denying what you may say or trying to explain it to you. They simply tell you that you're not allowed to talk about it. Don't bring that up. Because that's what you do when you're wrong or when you're right. Right? Rain produced at will. The book included a chapter by the scientist Simon Newcomb. Right, I know when I'm writing books, I have scientists, other people and shit write chapters in my book. Don't you? Isn't that a really common thing? Again, I'd love to know the production methods for making books and distributing books back in the 1800s. I'd love to know how all that works. And another by Edwin J. Houston, who would later go on to co-found General Electric. Come on, guys. I'm telling you, the further back you go, the more it's all just consolidated. They didn't want to bother making all of these people that they had to make all these different histories and narratives for. So instead, they give you a few people that somehow do everything. I mean, it's just stupid. Yeah. The scientist wrote a chapter in my book. The guy who goes on to found General Electric, you know, that company that still exists today. Yeah, he founded that. He wrote a chapter in my book too. That happens. After World War II, when General Electric was experimenting with rainmaking, do you guys remember hearing about how General Electric was experimenting with rainmaking after World War II?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know I do. I know I read all about it. I know my history teacher told me all about it because we did every single year I was alive, we would do at least 1 month on World War II. And how the poor Jays are the big victims and oh my gosh, it's the worst thing that ever happened. Never mind that at the same time, Stalin, and the Bolshevik Jays, like Marx and oh Jesus, why can't I think of his name? Marx and the other guy, they were killing 25 million Christians. Nobody talks about that. Same time. 25 million Christians sounds like a lot more than the 6 million that's not possible. The king of Belgium, Leopold or whatever his name was, he was killing around 50 million Africans at the time. Time magazine, 1930 something, man of the year. Think, or did they change that one too? I don't remember. I want to retract that statement. I can't say that for sure, the time. But he killed 50 million Africans at the same time. Nobody talks about it. Mao, they say, killed 100 million of his own people at the same time. But nobody's, you're the next Hitler. That's the next Hitler. The Hitler is the bad one. Mao, fuck Mao. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit about Lenin and Marx? That's who it was. Lenin and Marx. Bolshevik Jays who killed a bunch of Christians at the same fucking time. Yeah, never mind that. You're not supposed to know that shit. Like, how many of you know that? How many of you were taught that in school? And is the exact sort of attention that was given to the whole poor Holocaust, this, that, and the other. How many of you know that at the same time, the United States had Japanese internment camps? Camps, same kind of concept, same design, same. It's almost like the same people built them. And they had theater groups, and they had soccer teams, and they had all the same things, just like the other camps did. And the United States rounded up all the Japanese that they were worried were connected. And it's insane. Shipped them all over into these little camps, and they lived there for years. But that's okay. Shh, that's okay. Don't worry about that. It's the Jays that are the bad thing, and that's the only time it matters. But Cyril, after World War II, I don't remember learning with my World War II month every year that there were rainmaking and weather modification experiments. It's Stanford Law. Wait. General Electric was experimenting with rainmaking, now called weather modification. Stanford Law Review stated. In fact, if one Gathman were alive today and his patent had not long since expired, he might have an action for patent infringement. What does that even have to, like, it's just, sort of driving it home, but still, what the fuck? Good thing Stanford was mentioned. Stanford Law, not Stanford. From the 1890s on, Louis Gathman focused on ordnance development. Of course. Why wouldn't you just start focusing on weapons and shit? The largest gun designed by Gathman was the 18-inch Gathman gun, which was a coastal defense gun manufactured by Bethlehem Steel. There's that Bethlehem Steel. Gotta love that Bethlehem Steel that always shows up. Under Emil Gathman, head of Bethlehem Steel's ordnance section, and one of Gathman's sons. Jesus Christ, that family is so fucking loaded. The gun was tested at... I don't even want to say the name. The gun was tested at Handy Sook, we'll say. Handy Sook. Wait, there's no military presence in Handy Sook. Wait, what? Hey, when was the last time you heard about this? Is the anniversary of the Handy Sook shooting, and let's talk to the people, this, that, and the other. The only time you ever hear about it, the people present the narrative that they're somehow, like, the last time I heard about one of those people, suddenly out of the blue in like 2019, I think, an author, a random guy who made a book about the shooting, was being sued by one of the dads. Well, no, he had been sued We didn't hear about the lawsuit pending or the trial or anything like that. The only thing they told us about was after the fact when the dad, in fact, won the lawsuit, some sort of defamation bullshit lawsuit. No, it was for like I don't remember. It was $100,000. The guy was ordered to pay $100,000 to the dad. And this is just some random guy who wrote some random book that was published by some random publishing house that, didn't sell very many copies. And the crazy part was, initially, supposedly, the lawsuit was against both the publishing house and the guy that wrote it. But at some point, now tell me this is how trials work. You know how trials work. Just hang on for a second. Can you hear this? The initial trial was against the publishing house and the writer. But at some point, the head of the publishing house heard the arguments from the other side and sided with the other side. So now they were no longer part of the lawsuit because they sided with the side against the writer. That makes sense, doesn't
They
it?
wouldn't be as credible.
Huh?
They wouldn't be as credible as witnesses or whatever.
Well, no, they how does that still absolve them of responsibility?
I mean, I don't think
They still published the book just because the guy got in trouble and then said, "Oh, no, I side with the guy that's upset." So they show the interview of they interview the guy that won the lawsuit. Gail King is interviewing whatever. And of course his face is all blurred and his voice is all jumbled and made to sound real dark, real deep. And they're talking about how he'd been run out of 3 different neighborhoods since the whole thing because everywhere he goes and they find out he gets like that doesn't make any sense. If somebody moved into my neighborhood and we found out that they were involved in some sort of this or that, why would we run them out of the neighborhood?
it depends on what they're involved in.
No, I mean, they were the victims of something, right? They were the victims of a horrible shooting or something.
We wouldn't run them out.
Nobody would. That doesn't make any sense. But this guy's saying that he's been run out of all these neighborhoods and it's just life is hell for him because people don't think it's real. And it's like, again, if something were to happen and people claimed it wasn't real and it was my family, I would do everything I could to shut those people up. There's no way I would sit here and just be like, oh, I want to hide you. No, I don't want to talk about it and all that. Like it's crazy. And if you ever watched that, there was a funny thing happened, or we need to talk about. That's what it is. I forgot what the movie's called, but if you watch that one documentary, I mean, I remember it live. I remember when the news cameras cut to the 3 military guys in fatigues that then went running into the woods and got chased down. I remember that shit live. Everything about that narrative just doesn't make any sense if it's real. And the fact that you're not allowed to talk about it, I mean, if it's true, nothing should be off limits. If it's true, nobody should have a problem with you questioning it. If what you think is the truth and it's the right way to think and all that, then you should encourage people to ask whatever questions they have so that they don't have those questions anymore. It seems like that makes more sense than telling people they're not allowed to talk about something. And yet you'll see that in everything that sort of exists today. But especially the genocide that's happening right now. Nothing you're experiencing, nothing that's going on in your life is worse than what it's like for I want to say the Palestinians, but it's the Palestinians, the Lebanese, the Syrians, all of the people that are experiencing miserable's wrath. There's a fucking genocide happening right now. It doesn't matter if you agree with their religious beliefs or don't, or, you understand their culture or whatever. Nobody should be experiencing genocide. Especially if you're talking about at the hands of American-made weapons and shit. Like, this is unreal. This is so scary. And then when you understand the Samson option, and you understand the same people that are openly committing genocide right now and telling you you're not allowed to talk about it, openly say that they'll commit genocide, launch their nukes in every direction if they ever get invaded or anything. Like, it's some scary shit. This is real shit. It shouldn't matter what we... there are several things that shouldn't matter if we disagree on other things that we should all be very focused on. Exterminating pedophiles should be atop of that list. If you don't agree that we should just exterminate them, I'd love to hear your arguments. I'd love to know what you call it, what you think we should do instead. Obviously, it's not working, right? Obviously, the shit's getting worse and worse. Why isn't Chris Hansen being touted as Journalist of the Year over and over again for producing the Hansen versus Predator stuff out of his pocket? He's the executive producer on that shit. And he's doing something that benefits us all. Like, it's strange unless you understand who's in charge of your network, who's in charge of the media, who's in charge of the the scheme that you're falling for. But you know what? We're not supposed to be talking about that. We're supposed to be talking about the cloud seeding. So, he made the gun that was tested at Handy Sook, but the projectile performed far worse than traditional armor-piercing rounds. Lewis was also, he's a failure. He's a failure. Lewis was involved in the early aircraft development, was involved with early air in developing fuses for high explosive ordnances. He developed fuses. He was trying to invent helicopters, but instead invented fuses. I'd like to know how that story took place.
Because this is, I have to go to my mom's.
Newspapers reported in the spring of 1915 that Gathman invented the German 42-centimeter Big Bertha howitzer, and that these plans were subsequently stolen from the U.S. Patent Office. But these rumors were false, as no such blueprints were ever filed. So why is it included in the narrative?
You're at 12 in Meadowbrook, right?
Right? Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. During World War I, Lewis conceived a multi-hull naval armor design which incorporated buffer zones, shocks, and deflectors. Personal life. Oh, here, I thought we were going to actually get some sort of story here. Guthman was married. He had 3 sons, 2 daughters, Otto, Emil, Paul, Mrs. Foley, and Emma.
Are you sure?
Mrs. Foley and what? That don't make no sense. Guthman died on June 13th, 1917, at the home of his daughter in Washington, D.C. He was buried in Glenwood Cemetery. So as far as personal life goes, we know he was born in Hanover. His father was a school teacher who instilled a life instilled in his son a lifelong love of astronomy. He yada yada, military, made all this shit, failed at a bunch of shit, but then was super successful in a bunch, I don't even know. And then he died. Had 3 sons, 2 daughters, Otto, Emil, Paul, Mrs. Foley, and Emma. And then he died. Like, that is some interesting shit.
Do you need some
Interesting shit, if you ask me.
that you can use in the meantime?
So that's the guy that suggested shooting liquid carbon dioxide into your mom, into the clouds to make it rain in 1891. So for all of you that don't think it's possible that they seed that kind of shit, understand that this has been happening at least 1891 when this crazy fuck said we should shoot liquid carbon dioxide somehow. Like, it just doesn't, how does it, you can't shoot it liquid. How do you shoot something, even if it's in a capsule? If it's liquid, as soon as the capsule opens, it's going to turn to gas? I don't know. I don't get it. Maybe that's why it works, is because that's how it works. It as soon as it opens, it turns into a gas. I don't get it. Okay, so where are we? Oh, that was methods. We're not at methods yet. We were in history. Right. All right, history. Louis Gathman. All right, so we just read about Louis Gathman during the 1930s. So, 1891, Louis Gathman suggests shooting liquid carbon dioxide causing rain. During the 1930s, the Bergeron-Findesen process theorized that supercooled water droplets present while ice crystals are released into rain clouds would cause rain. While researching aircraft icing, General Electric's Vincent Schaefer and Irving Langmuir confirmed this theory. Of course they did. Of course they theorized it and then confirmed it. Makes sense. Schaefer discovered the principle of cloud seeding in July 1946 through a series of serendipitous events, of course. So there isn't a paper trail as to how this just happens. It's a bunch of serendipitous events. Gotcha. Serendipitous, like, like God stepped in to make that shit happen. Love it. Why the hell did I skip that far?
I used to live out in that area, so I'm,
Wow, this is a lot. There's a lot to this. All right. Following ideas he and Langmuir generated while climbing Mount Washington in New Hampshire. Of course.
You're at Brookdale of Nova.
In the 1940s, climbing Mount. Fuck yeah, these scientists, these chosen, these J scientists out there climbing mountains and shit. Why not? I mean, it's 2024.
Yeah.
We have cars and planes and shit. How many of you have climbed Mount Washington in New Hampshire? It's a thing you guys do over there in New Hampshire? Schaefer, Langmuir's research associate, created a way of experimenting with supercooled clouds using a deep freeze unit of potential agents to stimulate ice crystal growth. i.e., table salt, talcum powder, soils, dust, and various chemical agents with minor effect. Like, where does this even, like, why would he have brought all those things? And what made him go, you know what? Let me just start mixing this. This is like, you know, crack was just invented because a bunch of guys in the hood
All right. Well, I'm
with
gonna
too
need
much
you to
cocaine were
check
just
the
sitting around
data.
mixing up chemicals.
So
All right, let's add some of this. Let's add, okay. How about we try
that first
baking
subdivision up the hill down
baking
the
powder. Let's
right
try
on the
baking
west
powder.
fork.
Here,
The first
smoke this. Does this
subdivision on
get
the
you
left
high?
with the giant houses.
Okay, now let's try some cinnamon. Let's see if cinnamon works. Maybe add a touch of cinnamon, maybe give it a little flavor. You know, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just trying to make the crack a little bit better, man. First they try like flour, then wheat flour, then rice flour. Like,
Right off the
how did they
west
get to
track.
baking
I
soda?
used to turn down there and then
What
turn,
super smart
and
hood
then turn
guy
left
knew
into
the
her
principles of
subdivision.
baking soda, would work with cocaine in a certain way, it's stirred and whatever you got to do? I don't know the recipe. But he just knew it, figured it out, and produced crack and then told everybody. It was like, hey, everybody
All right,
in the
well,
hood,
wherever
in
those two
every
houses
hood,
are, that's where Kimmy's
suddenly, this is how we make crack out of all this
God.
extra cocaine we have.
And it was just her and her husband. They were not gonna have.
Don't worry, the news is going to sell it
Why
for
the
us.
hell do we have such a big house?
Hey, this is Channel 12.
Crazy.
There is a new epidemic going around.
I don't know where she ended up.
We've been telling you for years and showing you for years in all the movies and such how cocaine is just the most amazing rich guy power trip drug. Like all the rich guys do it and it's cool, it's romantic, it's really awesome, but it's super expensive. That's why you go and can't afford it.
So I'm not sorry about that.
Well, just so you guys know, there is a new, much more cheap, much cheaper version of cocaine out there that comes in smokable form. Super, super cheap. Super, super cheap. Super, super strong, too. It's way stronger than actual cocaine. So, you know, you got all those problems and shit you don't want to think about. This shit'll take that away for a good 15 minutes or so. But, yeah, it's really strong. It's really cheap. You should stay away from it. Just stay away. It's bad for you. Don't get it. Don't get it. We're just letting you know on every news station all over the country at the exact same time that crack has hit the streets. Crack has hit the streets. But it's real. It's all real. It's nothing. You know, these hood niggas. These hood niggas just figured that shit out, right? Just like some redneck morons out in the middle of nowhere was like, hey, you know, if we just mix up some Sudafed with some butane and some lighter fluid and some fucking cat piss and I don't know what the fuck the recipe is. We mix all that shit up. We could get pretty fucked up, you know? We could make some real money off that. They just figured that shit out, right? Meth just fucking, it just appeared. And then all over in all of these little, they were like, hey, you know, we got a bunch of Sudafed and you know, butane and we got that stuff over in our fucking, let's just go make us some.
Oh my gosh, it's insane.
Right? Isn't that how that works?
All right, honey. Well, I will call you. I'll call you tomorrow.
Like if you think that black people and you know the poor blacks and the poor whites that the situation is any different, you're insane. The only difference is white people have been somehow tricked into being proud to be called redneck, right? I'm proud redneck. There, there, there. Whereas the same version nigger that's used on black people, you guys have been brainwashed into committing crimes. It's MK Ultra to the fullest. First of all, MK Ultra convinced everybody they went away. They didn't. But what they've done to black people is just it's so awful.
Your brother.
You know, it's so awful. You've been tricked that you should commit crime, which will put you in their prisons so they make money. Because somebody says a word to you. MK Ultra is, you know, you get the phone call, hello, and it's like, oh, the blue moon flies to the west on Tuesday with barbecue sauce. Some weird phrase that you're never going to hear in any other situation. And it sends you into robot mode where you go and commit crimes that you don't even know you're doing like Sirhan, who killed Bobby Kennedy.
Let me know what day.
He said, you know what, I absolutely did it. You know, the pictures show I did it. I had the gun. I did. I don't remember it. I was at my house cleaning and the phone rang, and then suddenly I was there getting my picture taken, holding Bobby Kennedy's body. Like, what the hell's going on? You can see it in his face. He doesn't know what's going on. But that was MK Ultra, and he has association with MK Ultra. So the idea that somebody says a word or a phrase and it makes you go into this robot mode where you do things you would never ever do in real life. You know? You would do something like kill, blah blah blah, you know. It's the same thing. The fact that black people all over the place have been, you know, tricked into some random white guy can call you a nigger and you go beat him up and fucking fuck up his life. You know, who knows how bad you beat him up. And then you go to prison. You're in the prison and he's in the hospital system. All because somebody said a word. Some stranger. It could be a stranger. If any of you let anything anybody says to you bother you or get you to the point where you're going to commit crime, you're a fool. You're a fool. If you let people, like, you don't know people and they're going to talk shit to you. Oh, I don't want people to talk shit. I don't know, you know. There are 6 stupid people out there that just want to fucking make you as miserable as they are. So they're going to try to insult you or, you know, fuck with you or whatever it is to bring you down there. And if you're less of who you are because some stranger says some dumb shit to you, you got a lot of work to do. That's not okay. Unfortunately, I am circumcised. And unfortunately, I was dumb enough to circumcise my children, and I regret it every fucking day. I allowed some piece of shit Jays to fucking mutilate my children within hours of being born, causing who knows what kind of trauma. They know. That's why they don't do it for the first 8 days. They say it's because they think the vagina is disgusting and the kid passed through the vagina, so it has to be purified for 7 days before it's allowed to be touched. But there's a lot of kids that are born C-section that they still wait 7 days because they know that a newborn that's only a few hours old compared to a 8-day-old newborn who's experienced love and security and happiness and you know, warmth and soft and, you know, all these different wonderful things that it's experienced in that first 8 days. And it's aware, it can see, it can hear, it can, you know, it's doing all these things that the hours old baby is barely able to do. And when it's done to them, it's done in a situation where there's love everywhere. They immediately the baby is passed from family member to family member. Now, granted, it's disgusting because the moil cuts and sucks on the baby thing. Trying to edit my stuff so that I don't get in so much trouble. But they cut and then suck it in front of the whole family. The guy's called a moil. Mohel or Moehyl or something like that. But it's just a horrible, horrible fucking thing. It's horrible, and it's so much worse that we do it. We do it to our children within hours. They don't know what's going on. They're barely there. They're experiencing this whole new reality. Everything is firing at all fucking, like they're just, it's overload of experience. They were just inside a womb for 9 months. And now suddenly they're out and it's cold and it's like, what the fuck is going on? And I think I recognize that voice, and you know, and they get snatched up. You get tricked into thinking it's something good. It's for medical reasons. It's blah blah blah. And they take your kid and they put it in the cold nursery. And the kid doesn't know what the fuck's going on, and they take it to the operating room where they put it on the table. They strap it down like it's being crucified. Its arm is here, its arm is there, and its legs are strapped down. And it's cold. It's an operating room, and they don't use anesthetic because it's a fucking newborn baby. They don't use shit like that on newborns. And they put a little bell over the tip of it, and they spin it around, and a little blade comes out, and it cuts the glands, the necessary glands in the skin and all that. They cut it off. You know, it stretches it and cuts it. It's disgusting. And the kid goes, ah! And it goes into shock. And they wrap it up so it pees all over itself. And they take it to the back to the nursery where it's all by itself, and it's cold, and it's scared, and it doesn't. What the fuck just happened? It's in shock. And eventually, when it finally comes out of shock, which could be a half hour, an hour, who knows, and it passes out, which is what happens when you come out of shock, you pass out. They take it to the parents and say, look, little man had his surgery. Oh, he's so sleepy, but he was such a little trooper. And you're like, oh, my little guy, and is he okay? And yeah, he's just tired. He just had a little surgery. He's just tired. And then you're allowed to show this kid the love when it's already passed out. It's already fucking, the damage is way done. It just kills me to think of it. I hate it so much. And the reason you do it, which you don't really understand, is because as Goyim, we're allowing them to mark us as their property. Usually you have the J doctor doing it. So he is marking us as their property. According to your biblical bullshit, after God flooded the earth, he was speaking with Abraham, and this is long after, obviously, but I think this is after Sodom and Gomorrah, right after Sodom and Gomorrah, I believe. Abraham, it's either right after or right before. It's either, I can't remember, but Abraham, who is the father of, the whole idea that, Islam, Christianity, Jayism, these are all three Abrahamic religions, meaning they all come from Abraham. And Abraham is the father of the J people. He's the main J. He's the main bad guy in the Bible. Like, he's you could not like it all you want, but you just don't know it, I guess. But Abraham is having a conversation with God, apparently. He's got a direct line, I don't know. But God's like, look, Abe, buddy, I promise I'll never flood the earth again. And I'll prove it to you by showing you rainbows. All you got to do is circumcise yourself and all your slaves from here on out. Your children and all that, but everybody. Circumcise. I know I'm God and I could dink that shit off, that mistake, I guess. Or I can't imagine why God would want us to do that. It is so fucking weird. God is the All-Father, and he wants us to mutilate ourselves and traumatize. Like, what? For some sort of test? Some sort of show of loyalty? Like, what kind of sick motherfucker is that? Can you imagine if we did that as parents? If we were like, all right, I want my kid to cut off their right ear because that'll show me that they worship me. Like, you would get immediately arrested. And you should. And yet, we do this because apparently, again, God doesn't care about how you treat each other. God doesn't care about, how you treat the planet. God doesn't care about any of that. What God cares about is that we keep fixing his mistake, I guess. I mean, it's the craziest thing. And and again, they do it to please God. That's why they do it 8 days later and all that. They do it to us to mark us as property. Abraham circumcised himself, Jesus Christ. And then, and he's an old man by then. And then he circumcised his 90 slaves or whatever it was. It's a lot of blowjobs. It's a lot of bloody blowjobs. Can you imagine being the slave? You're already a slave, and now this crazy wacko's like, I talked to God. I talked to God, and he said I gotta cut it. Look what I did to myself, okay? I'm gonna do this to you, okay? Pull down your pants. Pull down your pants. Pull down your pants. Like, can you imagine? No. No, and apparently they all just were like, okay, Abe. Good old honest Abe. He'd never lie about talking to God. Again, imagine that. I say I want to cut my kid's earlobe off because I talked to God, and God said if all of us don't start cutting our kids' earlobes off, he's gonna flood the earth again. He told me I was the modern day Abraham, and because he told me that and told me to prove that I am the modern day Abraham, I can't cut any more off of that. That'd be gross. So we're all just gonna be walking around with one less earlobe. It hurts like a motherfucker. No, it fucking hurts. But the good news is we're going to do it to our newborns. Right? That makes sense? Newborns, we'll cut their earlobes off. It'll be the same like surgery. They'll be too young to remember it, so it doesn't have any effect on them. Yeah. Only a dumb Jay would say this is crazy, incoherent rambling. I'm literally quoting the Bible to you. I believe it's fucking Bible nonsense for sure. But you just don't like the parts I'm saying. Instead of actually addressing what I'm getting wrong, you're just crying like you people always do. Cry, cry, cry. All right, so we're back to the talcum powder and the table saw. Then on July 14, 1946, he wanted to try a few experiments at GE's Schenectady's research lab. He was dismayed. He was dismayed to find that the deep freezer was not cold enough to produce a cloud using breath air. What kind of freezer is a freezer that, you can produce breath air at breath clouds at 50 degrees. What are you talking about? That's not a very good freezer. Doesn't seem like you can call it a freezer if it doesn't go below 32 degrees, right? He decided to move the process along by adding a chunk of dry ice just to lower the temperature of his experimental chamber. To his astonishment, as soon as he breathed into the deep freezer, he noticed a bluish haze, followed by an eye-popping display of millions of microscopic ice crystals, reflecting the strong light rays from the lamp illuminating a cross-section of the chamber. Does that not sound like a goofy book report to you? Like and then he rode in on his stallion with his biceps bulging, and he pulled off his horn-rimmed glasses to reveal his piercing blue eyes. Like, it's so stupid. He was dismayed. A bluish haze. The experiment was easily replicated, and he explored the temperature gradient to establish the minus 40 degrees Celsius limit for liquid water. Within the month, Schaefer's colleague, the atmospheric scientist Bernard Vonnegut, was credited with discovering another method for seeding supercooled cloud water. Vonnegut accomplished his discovery at the desk, looking up information in a basic chemistry text. See, I love that stuff, right? When are we talking about here? This is the 1940s, so at least we're not in the 1800s with it. Uh, and then tinkering with silver and iodide chemicals to produce silver iodide. I mean, right. Like he was like, you know what? I want to produce something. So let me just tinker with some silver and some chlorophyll. No, not silver chlorophyll. Let's do some silver and some ammonium. No, no, not silver and ammonium. Let's do silver and petroleum. Nah, that didn't work either. See, I did the three. You thought I was going to do it on the third one, but I'm going to do it on the fourth one. Then he was like, let's do silver and iodine. Because after three or four, you're going to get it right, right? To think like he just, what would make him put those two chemicals together, those two elements together? I mean, one is silver, one is iodide. What does iodide consider? Is that a chemical mineral? What is that? Together with Professor Henry Chesson of SUNY Albany. We don't like that SUNY school. They keep talking bad about Israel. Will you go get the mail? Please and thank you. Henry Crisson of SUNY Albany, a crystallographer. A crystallographer. He's a crystallographer. God, I'm gonna hit you again. Jesus Christ. He co-authored a publication in Science and received a patent in 1975. A crystallographer. Both methods were adopted for use in cloud seeding during 1946 while working for GE in the state of New York. You've heard about this, right? Schaefer's method altered a cloud's heat budget. Gotta love that heat budget. The heat budget. Vonnegut's altered formative crystal structure, an ingenious property related to a good match in lattice constant between the two types, in lattice constant, which is blue, lattice constant, between the two types of crystal. It's the 40s, right? The crystallography of ice ladder played a role in Vonnegut's brother Kurt Vonnegut's novel, Cat's Cradle. That's what I thought. I knew that name. Kurt Vonnegut. But of course, the pool gets so small once you go back. The first attempt to modify natural clouds in the field through cloud seeding began during a flight that began in upstate New York on November 13th, 1946. He was successful. Schaefer was able to cause snow to fall near Mount Greylock in western Massachusetts after he dumped 6 pounds of dry ice into the large target cloud from a plane after a 60-mile easterly chase from the Schenectady County Airport. You guys are following this, right? In 1946, we didn't have jets yet, right? Did we have jets or were they just propeller planes still? Everything they showed from all those pictures from earlier only showed propeller planes. So for propeller planes, they chased a target cloud for 60 miles to drop 6 pounds of dry ice into it, which then made it snow.
No.
Sure. Dry ice and silver oxide agents are effective in changing supercooled clouds' physical chemistry and thus useful in augmenting winter snowfall over mountains and, under certain conditions, in lightning and hail suppression. What are we talking about here? This is fucking crazy. if I tell you this shit and I'm not reading it, and I'm saying we could do this, we could do that, we can do this, you're gonna say I'm lying. That's how that works. You won't believe that we can do all this shit, especially not in 1940s. Well, not a new technique. Hygroscopic seeding for enhancement of rainfall in warm clouds is enjoying a revival based on positive indications from research in South Africa, Mexico, and elsewhere. Is it Saint elsewhere? The hygroscopic material most commonly used is table salt. It is postulated that hygroscopic seeding causes the droplet-sized spectrum in clouds to become more maritime, bigger drops, and less continental, stimulating rainfall through coalescence. From 1967 to 1972, the U.S. military's Operation Popeye, that's one of Ago's favorite ones. I wish I had time to look that one up.
Because he looks like Popeye.
Cloud seeded silver iodide to extend the monsoon season over North Vietnam, specifically the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Right. That's what I always say this shit. We bragged about doing that to the Viet Cong. We bragged about it. We're gonna rain them out. The Ho Chi Minh Trail. It's like a common thing that everybody knows that we did that. And then you go, hey, they're spraying shit out of planes still, and they're like, what? Spraying shit out of planes? They can't do that. Okay, what? No. The operation extended the monsoon period an average of 30 to 45 days in targeted areas. Can you imagine how awful that would be? Monsoon rain is just, we don't get that. We don't get monsoon season here where it just rains and rains and the fucking landscape changes. And they added an extra month to it. The 54th Weather Reconnaissance Squadron carried out the operation to make mud, not war. They killed all those people. Those people didn't survive all that shit. You saw what happened when that tornado, that hurricane hit the mountains earlier in the year. Remember when that hurricane hit the mountains? Remember? The hurricane that hit the mountains and just killed all those mountain people? Remember, it's a big news story that everyone was talking about. Oh, wait, no. No, it was talked about, but not very much. Yeah, it's not that, though. It's not that. And then they did that to these guys openly for a month. For a month, they brought that on them. All those poor mountain people. One private organization that offered during the 1970s to conduct weather modification, cloud seeding from the ground using silver iodide flares was Irving P. Crick and Associates of Palm Springs, California. They were contracted by Oklahoma State University in 1972 to conduct a seeding project to increase warm cloud rainfall in Lake Carl Blackwell watershed. The lake was, at the time, 1972-73, the primary water supply for Stillwater, Oklahoma. Stillwaters run deep. Wonder if that's where that comes from. And was dangerously low. The project did not operate for a long enough time to show statistically any change from natural variations. An attempt by the U.S. military to modify hurricanes in the Atlantic Basin in the 1960s was called Project Storm Fury. Jesus Christ. Scientists tested 4 hurricanes across 8 days and observed decreased wind speeds of 10% to 30% on 4 of these days. So why aren't we doing that now? This was in the 60s. I'm sure we would have a much better grasp on things. They originally attributed the lack of results to faulty execution, but the results came into question because of the lack of supercooled water in the hurricane and the inability to determine if the effects were due to human intervention or the natural process of hurricanes. Two federal agencies have supported various weather modification research projects, which began in the early 60s. The United States Bureau of Reclamation, Reclamation Department of the Interior, and the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, Department of Commerce. Reclamation sponsored several cloud seeding research projects under the umbrella of Project Skywalker from 64 to 88. Oh, Skywater, sorry, Skywater. From 64 to 88. The NOAA, isn't that weird? Skywater, like, wow, that's convenient that they happen to have that same. And he just happened to figure it out. He must have heard that as a kid and was like, I'm going to make Skywalker. The NOAA conducted an atmospheric modification program from 1979 to 1993. You guys remember hearing about that? The sponsored projects were carried out in several states and two countries, Thailand and Morocco, studying both winter and summer cloud seeding. From 62 to 88, Reclamation developed cloud seeding applied research to augment water supplies in the western U.S. The research focused on winter orographic seeding to enhance snowfall in the Rocky Mountains and Sierra Nevada, and precipitation in coastal ranges of Southern California. In California Reclamation, in California Reclamation partnered with the California Department of Water Resources, CDWR. It's a really weird sentence. In California Reclamation partnered with California Department of Water Resources to sponsor the Sierra Cooperative Pilot Project, SCPP, based in Auburn to conduct seeding experiments in the Central Sierra. Like, that doesn't sound like I read a real sentence there. The the University of Nevada and Desert Research Institute provided cloud physics, physical chemistry, and other field support. The High Plains Cooperative Project, HIPLEX, focused on convective cloud seeding to increase rainfall during the growing season in Montana, Kansas, and Texas from 74 to 79. In 79, the World Meteorological Organization and other member states led by the government of Spain conducted a precipitation enhancement project, PEP, in Spain, with inconclusive results due probably to location selection issues. Reclamation is the name of the thing. Reclamation sponsored research at several universities, including Colorado State University, the University of Wyoming, Washington, UCLA, Utah, Chicago, NYU, Montana, and Colorado, and research teams at Stanford, Meteorology Research Inc., and Penn State University, and the South Dakota School of Mines and Technology, North Dakota, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, and Oklahoma. It's a lot of sponsorship. Cooperative efforts with state water resource agencies in California, Colorado, Montana, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and Arizona assured that the applied research met state water management needs. Hyplex also partnered with NASA, Environment Canada, and the National Center for Atmospheric Research, NCAR, from 2002 to 2006, in cooperation with 6 Western states. Reclamation sponsored a small cooperative research program called Weather Damage Modification Program. Well, that seems pretty interesting. I'd like to know more about that. Too bad that one's not blue. In the U.S., funding for research has declined in the last 2 decades, but I'm sure it has. But the Bureau of Reclamation sponsored a 6-state research program in 2002 to 2006 called the Weather Damage Modification Program. Again, you're going to tell me about it, but I can't click on it. It's not like it's so old it got forgotten, so why can't I find it? A 2003 study by the United States National Academy of Sciences, which is blue, right below it, that's blue, urges a national research program to clear up remaining questions about weather modification's efficiency and practice. In Australia, the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, Cicero, conducted major trials between 1947 and the early 60s. 1947 to 52, Cicero scientists developed dry ice or dropped dry ice into the tops of cumulus clouds. The method worked reliably with clouds that were very cold, producing rain that would not have otherwise fallen. 1947 to 52. 1953 to 56, Cicero carried out similar trials in South Australia, Queensland, and other states. Experiments used both ground based and airborne silver iodide generators. So, when Australia was burning a couple of years ago and a third of the species died or whatever, or two-thirds died, right? Was it two-thirds that died and one-third survived? Can't remember. It was the same time when Notre Dame burned, and Notre Dame was given like $1 billion overnight, and all of Australia was given like $230 million, and everybody was like, "Look at how generous everybody's being." A dumb church that was insured and did a controlled burn, obviously a controlled burn, was given over $1 billion in 24 hours. All of Australia couldn't get fucking a quarter of that. Late 50s, but why didn't they just do all this? Why didn't they just make it rain? Why don't they just use HARP to move whatever system they need to in place and then make it rain through this easy cloud seeding that they were reliably able to do in the 47? Late 50s and early 60s, cloud seeding in the snowy mountains on the Cape New York Peninsula, or the Cape York Peninsula in Queensland, in the New England district of New South Wales, and in the Warragamba catchment area of Sydney. Isn't that interesting? How they have a lot of the same names for the same big places? Must just be more coincidence. You know, because Australia is where they took all of those criminals, right, the prisoners, and dropped them off to deal with all the aboriginals and blah, 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 blah. And yet somehow they were like, you know what we should do? We should name all these places after those people that sent us here. Because that makes sense. The whole history of Australia is stupid. Maybe we should do that one tomorrow. I can't do anymore. This is just going to keep going forever. I didn't think there would be this much. In the United States, cloud seeding is used to increase precipitation in areas experiencing drought. You'd think. To reduce the size of hailstones that form in thunderstorms. Never heard that before. And to reduce the amount of fog in and around airports. Except for in whatever year the San Bernardino shooting took place, and then for the next 3 months or whatever, there was cold fog all over the northern hemisphere of the world. They couldn't make it go away then. In the summer of 48, the unusually humid city of Alexandria, Louisiana, under Mayor Carl B. Close, seeded a cloud with dry ice at the municipal airport during a drought. Quickly, zero point 0.8 inches of rain fell. Major ski resorts occasionally use cloud seeding to induce snowfall. Do it all the time. 11 western states and one Canadian province, Alberta, had ongoing weather modification operational programs in 2012. In 2006, an $8.8 million project began in Wyoming to examine cloud seeding effects on snowfall over Wyoming's Medicine Bow, Sierra Madre, and Wind River mountain ranges. In Oregon, Portland General Electric used Hood River seeding to produce snow for hydropower in 1974-75. The results were substantial, but caused an undue burden on the locals, who experienced overpowering rainfall, causing street collapses and mudslides. PGE discontinued its seeding practices the next year. Gosh, it seems like we would have a handle on that here 50 years later. I was like, wait, how long? 1974? And then I was like, oh, wait, 74. Okay, I already know. In 1978, the U.S. signed Environmental Modification Convention, which bans the use of weather modification for hostile purposes. Oh, well, I'm sure everybody sticks by that. As of 2022, 7 agencies in California are conducting cloud seeding operations using silver iodide, including the Sacramento Municipal Utility District, which began employing the technique in 1969 to increase the water supply to its hydroelectric plants, and reported that it results in an average of 3 to 10% increase in snowpack. I mean, this is just crazy. I gotta come back. Oh, conspiracy theories. Well, this should be interesting. I mean, I have all this history. I don't usually come across Wikipedia pages with this. This is history, right? Just the history. So all these pictures, and then all this other stuff. I usually don't ever come across that much information, right? Especially on something like cloud seeding. So then you get to the conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories is that big, and let's read what it says. Cloud seeding has been the focus of many theories based on the belief that governments manipulate the weather in order to control various conditions, including global warming, populations, military weapons testing, public health, and flooding. This speculation has been fueled in part by government interventions and programs like Operation Popeye, where they literally did that. How is this a conspiracy theory when I literally just got done reading you why this is officially a thing and how this has been going on since blah, 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 and in 46 they figured it out, and the guy was talking about doing it in 1891, liquid fucking... What are we talking about here? A 2016 classified ad placed by Los Angeles County Department of Public Works in the Pasadena Star News sparked claims that widespread weather modification was being confirmed. The department followed up with a clarification that it was only describing cloud seeding used as an anti-drought measure intermediately for more than half a century in Los Angeles. They're like, no, we're just doing it. Like, I don't understand how that explanation doesn't confirm the claim. The claim that they're using, I guess, are we saying because it's widespread weather modification? Is that what we're saying is the problem? Because they're like, no, it's not widespread. It's just something we've been doing for more than half a century here to manipulate the rainfall. What? How stupid do you have to be to not see that like that?
Because they preoccupy everybody with bills.
No, I get all that.
And
no,
hustle bustle, so that it might come in your brain, but then it goes right back out.
Right, but I'm saying it to you. I just read it to you. They're saying that the conspiracy theory is that they do all the shit that they openly claim that they not just can do, but they do. They do. Where is the conspiracy theory here? Anyway, go get your free download. www.the-bilderberg-group.com. It's going to be in the description. There'll also be a link to our Facebook page, facebook.com/the Bilderberg Group official. But go check out the videos there, the music videos. Go get your free download on the page. Just all we ask that you share it with someone, and everybody else. Have a great day. Eat your vegetables, all that good shit. Pedophiles, kill yourself. Seriously, kill yourself.